Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen of Wednesday, January 10th to order in the Town Hall Central Meeting Room, 5:00 p.m. on the dot. Item 1, the Woodbridge Board of Education. Welcome Superintendent Robert Gilbert, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well as all of you. Good to see you, and glad that we're into the thaw now. I hope you're all enjoying the thaw versus last week. Springtime. It feels like spring. Yes, by tomorrow it certainly will. So it was December 13th when I was here last, and in some ways not a lot has happened, but in some ways a lot has happened since we've been here, and I'll tell you about the more eventful things that happened since we last spoke at the end of my report, but I'll give you some more than just the general updates first. Enrollment has been pretty steady since the last time we were here. As you know, we started the year with many more students than we projected. In December, I also reported we were up to 839, and we have one less student now. In January, 838. So again, the typical trend is for the numbers to increase throughout the spring. So we've held since last month, but we're anticipating more students, which is typical. Our current budget for the current year, the good news is our deficit has been reduced by around $50,000. We were at about $148K last month, and it's been reduced to about $99K due to the use of our, we re-examined our IDEA special education grant, and we've been able to use that for some of the special ed costs, so we are now down to $99K. So that really, what that really constitutes is $171,000 of special education deficit, $72,000 of underspending in regular education areas, with that total of $99K. So that's the good news on that. At our December Board of Education meeting, two main things took place there. We had our student council present about their outreach activities and things that they do within the school and outside the school to the town. And then the second part of the meeting was a presentation of my budget for FY19, the proposal that I brought forward to the Board of Education. You may have already heard that I brought forward a 1.94% increase for the current Beecher Road School staffing and programs, and also a 0.7% increase for out-of-district rising costs, for a total of 2.64%. I mentioned last month the main drivers, and this was going to be the enrollment growth in terms of adding a classroom teacher, special education needs, our strategic plan initiatives, but we did offset many things with new cost efficiencies and revenue streams that we have not used before. I'm going to be presenting details of that to you folks on January 23rd at 7 o'clock, I believe, to the combined finance and selectmen boards together. So it was relatively uneventful until December 30th, Saturday morning, when I got a text that we had a little problem, which really turned out to be a pretty big problem. We did have a coil pipe freeze and burst on Saturday, December 30th in the extreme cold. It was caught quickly. There was an immediate cleanup that started with one of our local companies in the area. And since that point, we have engaged other service companies to do a fuller check of all of our systems in the building, especially because we were entering a much colder time of the year than we had anticipated, as you know, last weekend. So this was a huge thing. Many of us spent the entire weekend at the school or conversing as to how we're going to move forward with this. I do want to say that calls and emails and texts to Tony and Beth I really appreciate your response to this, the two of you. And people from the town. Brad Parsons has been just a godsend in terms of helping us out, just checking in and giving us some added support. Joe Capucci, Sean Rowland, and Terry Gilbertson. It just shows a lot of town, school camaraderie and support and partnership. So I just want to go on record saying that they've been really great. So what has this meant to the school and to impact to the kids and to teaching, and also what are the costs involved? So 7 classrooms, 1 4th grade, a few 5th grades, and a few 6th grades were impacted in terms of their actual home rooms. Using rooms such as the art room, the music room, world language, Spanish rooms, we were able to relocate them to new home bases, if you will, for a period of time. And while the cleanup has started and continues, our exposure in this whole situation is an insurance deductible of $5,000. And there will be some additional maintenance costs because we've engaged additional maintenance to check all of our systems in light of the winter, in light of the cold that we had last weekend. They started right before the weekend got going. We wanted to make sure that this did not happen in any other places in the building. The checks have gone very well since they started, but there is some cost to that. The staff and students have been phenomenal through the change, and parents have been very supportive and understanding. And that's sort of just a sort of an executive 30,000-foot view of the whole process. So we're moving forward. We're hoping to actually move one class of students hopefully back into their classroom tomorrow or Friday. And that'll be the first one that we actually move in. There'll be some other smaller rooms released as well, and being able to reclaim those. And so the process will continue week by week, little by little, gradually. That's really the end of my report, and I'll look forward to seeing all of you on Tuesday the 23rd for the budget presentation.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Bob?
Yeah, I may have missed. Do we know we assessed hour-wide?
So we have an installer of equipment, we have a maintenance company, we have a systems controls vendor as well. It is not conclusive, I will tell you, and it's a little annoying, and it's also a little bit of this that goes on in situations like this, but it's not completely conclusive as to exactly what failed in that particular situation. We may get to know that at some point. I don't think we're quite done with this process. No, we're not. But at this point, I really can't tell you and go on record saying it was for sure this, or for sure the damper, or the equipment, or the person controlling or monitoring, or that kind of a thing.
The only reason I ask, having spent all the money there, it'd be nice to know they have gone wrong somewhere. Right? You know, so
Agreed.
It doesn't happen.
Agreed.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right.
See you soon.
Thanks, Bob.
Yep.
Item 2 on the agenda is Fire Chief Rowland. We had a structure fire that was pretty significant on this past Friday, January 5th, and I thought it'd be important for Chief to come and give us an update on it because it was so significant and pretty much significant related to some apparatus that might need some, give the board a heads up.
Sure.
On what happened.
So
It was
like
very
we all,
cold. I
Yeah.
can tell
So
you.
like we all know, we had a fire on Inwood Road about 5:22 Friday night. Upon arrival, we had heavy fire showing, especially in the garage area and the second floor. Very quickly, we had some issues going on. We had a power line that was arcing and that finally fell. That was right in the way of dragging hose off the attack engine. So our second due engine in, we had to drag a bunch of lines off of that. We were fighting basically negative 15 temperatures, 40-mile-an-hour winds. Winds are no good in a fire. As we saw out in California, what happens with wind is it just takes the fire and it just basically feeds it. It took about 2 hours to control the fire and to get it back under control in that section of the home. Then we were checking for hot spots. We had to bring an excavator in to assist the fire marshal with his investigation, to move debris around, and also to aid us in putting the rest of the fire out because the roof collapsed and everything collapsed and it was burning from underneath. So we had to bring a machine in to burn some material over to put it back out again. We did have, like Beth was speaking, we did have a lot of equipment breakdowns, a lot of frozen equipment. I believe we lost, right now the tally is up to 8 nozzles. We went through probably between 23 and 2,500 feet of hose that has to be retested, which sounds like a lot, but what we usually carry, it's not a tremendous amount, but we have to get it retested before we can put it back in service. We had an issue with a few of the trucks. One in particular is one of the tankers. We're unsure exactly what's causing an issue. We don't know if the pump froze and cracked, or the the evaporator froze and cracked on the pump. So we're researching that with our vendors to figure out what our next steps are. We had a bunch of broken valves on the outside of the trucks. They froze up. And just to put it in perspective, it's not plastic breaking. These are cast iron valves that basically froze and just expanded and bent. So, and the hose lines were fully solid. If we shut the water off for about 45 seconds during the fire, once we shut them off, the lines were frozen solid and the nozzles are frozen solid. So at that point, we had to go back and yank, pull all new hand lines off to keep fighting the fire and keeping the water going so we can do it. We had to draft at this location. So we had our 2 tankers there. We had Seymour's tanker there, Bethany's 2 tankers there. So we had a nice shuttle going, and we were flowing probably about in between 1,000 and 1,200 gallons a minute water. So that's basically it. In regards to equipment, we're still figuring out exactly what's good, what's bad. The air packs were basically frozen blocks by the end of the night, so those are in the process of all getting retested, along with all the apparatus. All the fire pumps on the apparatus have to get retested. We did have to buy new nozzles, which we have some spare, so we're able to make do, but the new nozzles aren't on order, but they take about 4 weeks to come in. So we ordered those right away. So, and then Monday night we had another structure fire, and people were extremely lucky. Fire started in the kitchen, underneath the oven, burnt the floor. We were able to make a quick stop there and save the people's house, other than some damage done to the kitchen and the floor area and part of the basement. So it's been a busy week.
Anybody have any comments or questions? I want to say thank you. I've gotten a lot of phone calls from residents asking me to thank the department for everything you did, because it was obviously on every news station we have, and they were just amazed, as always, that we are a volunteer department. And what are you guys, crazy, going out in that weather to do this? So thank you for taking care of us and
it's also important to note to the other
15
towns
degrees.
that helped, which was Prospect, Orange, and Bethany. So
Did Seymour come
Seymour.
too?
I'm sorry,
I
Seymour
thought so,
too.
yeah.
Yep.
Wow. So thank you, everybody. Pass that along to everyone at the fire
I
department.
had a question. I can't imagine anything worse than fighting a fire on a bitterly cold night like that night. But in areas that are chronically cold like this, do they have any provisions for modifying their equipment to deal with this?
You really don't. There was another department in the state talking to one of our vendors that had ran into the same problem last year when they had a cold snap and they had a fire similar to what we had, and they had a lot of broken stuff. And it's basically it's what you deal with. So, yeah. So the majority of the stuff that broke is on the outer of the truck. Hopefully the inner part was pretty. Between the engine running, the pump running, hopefully had enough heat to keep everything moving. And we were flowing a lot of water, so it was good. It's when they shut the hand lines down, that's when we started having issues. So
Chief, everyone was okay? Pardon?
we had 6 injuries. One guy required stitches, another guy required to go to the hospital for a medical condition, and basically others were sprained knees, back issues, shoulder injury. So it happens when we just had fresh snow, so you're going through 15 inches of snow. And once the water was turned on, everything turned to a sheet of ice. So we had a lot of slip and falls going on at that point. But everybody's good. Everybody's out of the hospital. They got released that night. So everybody's good.
Thank you so much. Okay. Item 3 on the agenda, Selectmen's report. Going to be shorter than usual. I had a day yesterday. But thank you all for kind wishes regarding my mom. She's doing great, and thank you. Okay, the few items I'd like to address in my first Selectmen's report this month. I'd like to start by wishing everyone a Happy New Year if I haven't done it already. I think we have an exciting 2018 ahead of us, and I'm optimistic and ready for the challenges and opportunities. I'd like to briefly recap a few of the initiatives we've been working on together as a board. We'll be going into detail later on most of them, so that's why it's a short report tonight. The emergency radio system upgrade project. Thank you, Joe. I'll tell him later. Yeah, you will. After the project's funding was approved on December 5th, the project will be moving into the purchase and installation phase. And to help the Board of Selectmen continue our due diligence, I've asked Joe Dye to chair an ad hoc oversight committee, and tonight we'll establish the charge so they can begin meeting. So again, thank you. We'll announce the membership later. The second thing is, I've told you about these before, but it's just sort of a recap of what we've been doing. The old firehouse project, as you know, there's a steep grant as well as a portion of the insurance settlement funds to be expended no later than June 2018. We have had, prior to my time as first selectman, an old firehouse steep grant ad hoc committee headed by Bob Tucker. I think he's an architect, right?
Correct.
Yep. Directing this work. And tonight we'll hear from Amity, the Amity High School group regarding a request for use of the upstairs portion. It's very exciting. Also at the old firehouse, after our walkthrough in December, representatives from the Amity Woodbridge Historical Society, hi Muffy, have been meeting with Town Clerk Stephanie Charleglio to work out details for a plan that would involve a complementary use of Bay 1 to incorporate the display of historic artifacts and photos alongside perhaps the antique fire truck. A written agreement will be drafted for our consideration at a future meeting. We don't have that ready this evening, and I'll keep the board informed of developments. Also on the agenda tonight, the CERC Economic Development Initiative for our town. I met again with Jody Allant and Jamie Scott, Chair and Vice Chair of the Economic Development Commission, earlier this week to share thoughts, and we'll have Courtney Hendrickson here tonight as well to further our discussion on the CERC proposal later in the agenda. The public opinion survey is also on the agenda for this evening. We'll get to the details on the survey regarding the former CCW later in our agenda tonight. Amity teacher Rick Boudreau will be here to walk us through those details, and I invite everyone to bring their input, and let's have a good discussion and hopefully get this going. Finally, I took part in several other meetings and visits since our last board meeting, primarily regarding budget developments. It was a very busy month. And now as we head into our next agenda item, I'll just note that I have asked Deputy First Selectman Mika Cardozo to take over the chairmanship of the Ordinance Committee. And I'm very thankful he's agreed to take on this role, so thank you, Mika. You have a lot to do. And we worked on that agenda last month, and there's so many items we have to finish up. I'm very thankful he's agreed to take on this role, so we'll start with a brief update from Mika on the work of the Ordinance Committee. Okay. Hello.
There are a number of items that we've been reviewing, and at this point in time, we've identified the additional information that was required by the committee as we were going through the different items. Initially, the items that were brought up were the anti-blight, anti-fracking, Gold Star Parents tax abatement, Veterans additional assessment credit, stormwater, solid waste. We also added the leash law, review of the leash law as a part of our agenda. At this point in time, with Jerry's help, Jerry is our town attorney is looking into some information on a number of the issues that we expect to have by the meeting on January 30th, correct? And we also have on the blight, we're looking to meet with Terry and get some additional information in regards to what happened in the past. Anti-fracking, Beth, our first selectman, has already conferred with the Commissioner Klee, and we will extend an invitation to him and Jen Skiddard again to our meeting, but we do expect to have whatever information we need so we can vote on it when we do meet on the 30th. Mm-hmm. The intent, hopefully, is on the 30th that we'll have the information that's required for us to actually take action.
31st.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm looking at the 30th, and I might have missed it. It's not.
I have the 31st.
31st, I'm sorry.
Okay,
it is the
good.
31st.
Right.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Jerry.
Okay.
I
Sorry.
have it on the 30th.
Yeah. And is the firefighters tax
Tax
abatement
abatement is also on there as
item,
well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 items to get drilling down on. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll be there, I'm just not going to chair it anymore.
Understand.
Okay. So thank you so much. Anyone have any questions for me ahead of time? No? Okay. Thank you. Just wanted to keep you informed. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Personnel Committee report. The committee met this afternoon. I'm going to try to do it earlier, but we just couldn't get it, or get a meeting that everyone could be at the same time. It's busy schedules, etc. And at that meeting, I discussed I've been, as I said at the meeting, I've been in this office for 6 months now, and it's been
I'm sending these out.
oh, okay, thank you. A very productive 6 months, I think, but we have to do a little bit of.
No, that's
Thank you. 2 pages. I thought it was on 1 page.
that's the original.
Okay, now I'm messing up the joint. Okay. Anyway, start again. So anyway, looking at all the things that we have to do and all my initiatives and the things that I'd like to get accomplished, which I can reiterate a list if that would help. CERC, Economic Development, doing something with the country club, coming up with something that we can get resolved, growing our grand list, looking at, and we've been really working hard on cost-saving exploration on pretty much every department, looking at ways we can, one thing I think we have laxed, not been as good at in town is writing grants, getting grants done for bringing in money. And we can do the big ones like STEEP and things like that, but as far as the smaller grants, for example, there's a possibility we can get a grant for the animal shelter from the Wiederhold Foundation. We've been invited to apply, and that's due January 31st, to have someone who could be a grant writer in town develop just doing that and other things also, but working on that for us, bringing in money because there's so many, maybe fire department too, we can get some grants for you guys. There's a lot of opportunities out there, and I think for just one reason or another, we just don't have the time and these things go away. And given the fact that the state is cutting back, it's important for us to find other ways to fund things and also assist with all these project management. I've decided to hire Sheila McCrevin. She's part-time now, and I've decided to hire her as a full-time communications director and grants writer. And we had a meeting at the personnel meeting this afternoon, as I said, and we had a discussion. Dave Ryan was there. We discussed the merits of her as being hired as communications director and grants writer, and the committee voted the following. The motion was to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that Sheila McCrevin be hired as communications director and grants writer effective January 22nd, 2018, a salary of $59,500. And the motion was moved by me and seconded by Terry Schatz, and the vote was Terry and I voted aye, and Dr. Lober voted nay. And that was the end of the meeting. So I invite questions and discussion, and then we will put it to a vote.
So to the extent we're talking about an existing employee, and perhaps a future employee in a different, shouldn't we be in executive session? I don't think this conversation is going to necessarily lead to a broader discussion on personnel and so forth. I just don't feel this is appropriate.
Very limited reasons when you can go into an executive session on personnel matters.
Okay.
And it's generally not hiring somebody. It's just the opposite. You have to give the employee notice. They have the right to either have a public hearing or a private hearing. The fact that you're hiring somebody just really does not come under that provision.
Okay. Then I guess we'll air it all out
I
here.
think you got to hear. Listen,
Okay.
if you want to go into executive, you can. I'm just telling you what the
No, I don't
law
want to do it
is.
if it's
Yeah.
inappropriate. I didn't look at the statute. I just knew that.
I think it is. I think
I
it
didn't
is.
know.
I just feel that I think there may be some sensitive discussion going on.
Right,
And if we
and
have to have it in
and
the
I
open,
agree,
we'll have it in the
but-
open.
Okay, so who wants to start?
I guess I will.
Okay.
So, some concerns. Notwithstanding what you just laid out, I'm not persuaded that we need the position, and we can talk about that maybe a little bit more. I can be persuaded. Second concern is if it's a new position, which I believe it is, because Sheila was hired, for a temporary position, specific position, and I thought a finite period of time. So we're talking about a new position. Have we put this out to other applicants to see who else might be interested or qualified?
We
for the
talked about
position?
that this afternoon, and Mr. Ryan said we did not need to because he considered it a position that, am I right?
Yeah.
It was part-time to full-time, even though the job
Well,
description.
he might consider that,
Temporary.
but I don't
Temporary.
think it is. I mean,
Okay.
I differ with that
Okay.
because of the way it was presented to us initially. So
Okay,
I don't dispute he takes that position.
Okay.
I would take a different
all
one.
right.
So that's one concern. The other concern I have, quite frankly, is I know that you guys are very friendly. I know that Sheila's been, she's in the Democrat Party for years and years, and I know she was, or I think she was your campaign manager.
She was?
And I just don't know that it's appropriate to hire Sheila under those circumstances, to this type of a position.
Okay.
I would like to have a further discussion about that, if anyone, but again, that's kind of sensitive, and I didn't necessarily want to do it in public, particularly with Sheila sitting right next to me. But
Right.
nonetheless, there she is, and here I am,
Yeah.
and those are my concerns, generally.
Thank you.
One thing I'll offer, Joe, is that from my knowledge, and it's not extensive, I'll admit, but from an elected standpoint, in most instances where I've known elected officials to come into office, they usually want to bring in people they know and they trust. Chief of staff positions, different positions as such. So I would think, obviously, if it's somebody you've been campaigning with, if it's somebody who was, it would be somebody who's associated with the party and somebody who's been engaged and inclusive in what you're doing and everything that you've done. So I can certainly understand a new selectman, be it Beth or anyone else, wanting someone who they trust, who they're close to, and who's aware of everything that's going on to be part of their staff.
I respect
And that's
that
the way that I
position,
see
but that's
this.
what Jerry is for, and that's why he's, he's a Democrat, and he's always been there for the.
I'm not a communications guy.
No, you're not, but
Do you write grants?
I understand.
He doesn't write grants
I
either.
understand that,
Yeah.
and Sheila's not being hired for chief of staff either, and this
I
is
will tell you,
Woodbridge,
initially,
Connecticut, so
she was not, she was not available when I went to hire a campaign chairman. Sheila
I
and
don't
I were
wanna
not
relitigate
friendly
that.
as we are. We got more friendly, obviously, day to day during the campaign, but we were
Sure.
not social friends prior to that. So,
I just think in a town the size of Woodbridge,
Mm-hmm.
we've been down this road before, we tend to get a little parochial in terms of commissions and hiring and so
I
forth.
understand.
And I
After
just-
6
just
months, I have
don't
to say,
know.
though, she's so up to speed that we can hit the ground running with some of these grants. She's actually already attended a workshop to look at grant. That's my biggest thing that I think we have out there. That's a great opportunity for us.
No, we could pay her as a stipend for grants if they come along too.
We
I
could,
don't know.
except
I'm
there's
just-
other things that I really need help with in terms of community. It's just, I feel I need this, and I'd like to do it. So, but I appreciate your
I
input.
respect that.
Thank you. Anybody else want to comment?
I mean, I will say, I was at the meeting, and I see where you're coming from, and I respect your opinion. I think we're looking really at qualifications and need, and quite honestly, I think we can all agree that the town could really use help with writing grants with almost all of our departments. There's just so many needs as we're looking at the budget, and we're going to be seeing some of these requests coming up. There's just we're here, we need to be here, and there's just a gap that we need to fill. In our prior to personnel committee meetings, when we looked at positions that we were trying to fill, we ended up promoting people, hiring people that were already here. It's just it makes sense if there's no reason not to, and again, we looked at qualifications. That was the
Well, I think I
basis.
brought up some reasons not to, but those are my reasons. But the other, again, if we're really looking for a grant writer, I don't know that Sheila is or isn't, but have we put together a job description and put it out there for
I'll turn that over
applicants
to you
and so
as far as
forth?
job descriptions. I didn't
I know,
realize we
Mr. Ryan says we don't need to do that, but
We don't do job descriptions, apparently, correct?
We don't have,
when we look for employees, we
we
don't.
we put together job qualifications, yes. We don't have job descriptions for each position, But when we look for a position, if we don't have someone to fill it, we put together qualifications and,
So this is a new position, we don't have a job description?
well, we have currently being filled by someone. Position.
If
In other words, if we were looking for
I'm
someone.
hoping that this will be paid for by the money she brings in. I'm hoping.
I would hope so.
Yeah, and perhaps more.
I didn't
a
even
lot
mention
more.
the budgetary part of it.
A lot more.
Thanks for bringing
Yeah,
that up.
yeah.
because
Tony
there's a
will, he has-
budgetary aspect of this too that I don't quite understand. Is this all new money that we'd be paying Sheila? How much that is, I don't know.
So basically, I can explain, there will be a funding request later in this meeting, which will fund the position through the remainder of the year. And then it'll be in the budget, starting as a new position for your deliberations as you move through the budget process. So, all new money, correct? That's your question, right?
Yeah.
Anything else?
I would just kind of like to put out a general caveat on this issue. I think Sheila is very well qualified, and I think she can do a very good job in this position. My concern is really about policy making, and I think that the folks of this town have put a lot of trust in us and responsibility on us to be the ones to make that policy. And I would be very wary of people who are not elected, but who are employed positions, but in positions where they can have influence to influence the making of that policy. And I would guard against that as rigorously as possible.
We talked about that,
did
and
talk
I
about
assured you I'm with you guys making the policy. I promise. Anything else? Yeah.
Now, I respect the position from our colleagues, but I just want to say we're very fortunate to have someone like Sheila. She worked for our insurance committee at the state capitol for 2 sessions, and the quality of her work is outstanding. And it's very rare that we can have something like already made for our needs, and I just think we're very fortunate to have her.
So I'll make the motion. If anyone we can continue the discussion once I make the motion. I'm happy to do it. Make a motion that we hire Sheila McCrevin as communications director and grant writer beginning January 22nd. This has to go to the Board of Finance as well as a funding request with a salary of $59,500 beginning January 2nd and as an at-will employee.
Yep.
That will be in the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Item 3 under committee reports is the ad hoc radio committee, and I'll turn to Joe. Thank you again. I haven't said it enough. Thank you for agreeing to chair this. And Susan Jacobs will also be serving from the Board of Finance. You're from the Board of Selectmen, and we have a third person, which to be named. We reached out,
Haven't heard back.
but we haven't heard back yet.
Yeah,
No.
so
we-
talked
that will be a
little bit about
third,
that,
yeah.
and, so I thought if we hadn't heard and decided it would be appropriate to tell whomever is interested or watching that we do have a third position to fill
I think that's
on this
great,
committee.
right.
We'll read the charge so you can get an idea of what we're going to be doing. And from my standpoint, I think if we had someone who had technical abilities, Susan and I are not technical.
Nor am I.
We're lawyers.
So anybody out there in TV land who's
TV
interested,
land
please
who's
call us.
interested and
If you're interested in being the third person on the,
right, and once we
Committee.
read this, I think they'll have a better idea of what's involved, and maybe if they think they can help us with our task, give Beth a call or Tony, right?
Yep.
Or
you.
or me. I
Yeah.
don't want to give my number out. But they can call.
Okay.
Okay, so you want me, I'll read this in? You want me to read it in? And it just got finalized a few minutes ago, so we'll read it in and then we'll clean
think
it
I
up
have
and
the
it can be
final, but-
available for the
Okay.
record tomorrow. So ad hoc oversight committee regarding approved simulcast system upgrade. Membership, Joe Dyke Chair, Susan Jacobs from the Board of Finance. And the third person to be named, to be determined, as we just talked. Number 2 is the charge. The committee shall be responsible for review and implementation of the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance approved upgrade of the town radio/communications systems and related towers and equipment, parentheses, commonly and hereafter referred to as the simulcast system, used by the, close paren, used by the police department, fire department, and Department of Public Works. Responsibilities: oversee the execution, review, and implementation of the communication systems agreement, including the statement of work between the town and Motorola Solutions, Inc., dated December 26, 2017. Analyzed, B, that was 3A. 3B, analyze the possible use of outsourced dispatch services, including all operational and cost aspects, to determine if such services would be in the best interests of the town. C, further review and analyze the overall needs and requirements of the simulcast system and any and all matters related thereto to assure a cost-effective upgrade that meets the current and future needs of the town. D, recommend to the boards of selectmen and finance regarding the funding and timeline for implementation of the project. E, oversee the implementation of the upgrade of the simulcast system as finally approved by the boards of selectmen and finance. 4, funding. A town meeting was noticed and held on December 5th, 2017. Insofar as no quorum was present at such town, it's actually, I think, a special town meeting. Immediately after the special town meeting, the boards of selectmen and finance approved funding for this project in amount up to $2,100,000. I added this, you might, but it's
okay.
All expenditures
Your
from the
committee.
town capital project budget concerning this project shall be incurred in accordance with the policies of the town of Woodbridge, the town charter, and this charge. 5, project manager. The town has previously engaged Mr. Paul Zito as a consultant to assist the town with the simulcast system upgrade. Mr. Zito will work closely with the ad hoc committee and shall be the project manager per paragraph 7.1 of the Communications Systems Agreement to assist the committee working with Motorola through the contract and implementation phases to assure a cost-effective upgrade of the simulcast system that meets the current and future needs of the town. That's it.
Did you want to, we're not going to have committee membership, but the fire chief and the police chief will be included in this at this point, or do you want to just?
As members of the
No, not members, but I guess attending the meetings and giving input.
Well, they'll be public meetings.
Okay, all right,
they're
good.
public
Getting
meetings.
input from them, because I know over
So
the last
whomever-
3 years, they were there, right?
They're certainly, they're
Oh,
certainly
yeah,
more
they're still
than
here,
welcome,
okay, good.
as is anybody else. For that.
Okay, all right, okay, good. Anyone have any questions about the charge? Okay, and we'll keep you posted on the third person.
Once I clean that up, I'll distribute it to everybody.
Okay,
Great.
all right, great. Okay, Joe, and obviously, time is of the essence, so,
Yes. So let's get that third person.
okay. We'll do our best. We hope you have somebody to, did
Yeah,
you
I'm
hear
working
back
on
from
it too,
any?
but
Yeah.
I know you guys have a call into
Susan
somebody.
called with the name of someone, so,
Okay.
and I don't know who it is, so I gave it to Tony because he
Okay.
knew him, and
And
so
then
he reached
maybe
out to
someone
him
else will
today.
come forward.
Maybe
We'll
someone
get
will come
someone
from
in a
TB
week or
Land.
so.
Okay, good, all right, thank you. We'll move along to liaison reports. I have a quick one. At the December Board of Fire Commissioners meeting, the main item of discussion was the aging vehicle fleet, and we saw it in action most recently and with the cold and everything. And prioritizing the needs of the department. We've heard from Chief Rowland about the recent fires. Thank you. And just for the recent Animal Shelter Building Committee, I have an update later in the meeting. So, Terry, you're on.
So for the Amity Board of Ed, there was 2 updates. They elected a new chairman, Chris Brow from Orange, and also the teacher's contract have finally been approved. So we'll get a copy once it's published, and we'll be sharing it. And then Bob Gilbert gave a very thorough, as he always does, presentation. The last Board of Ed teacher Board of Ed meeting was pretty full. A lot of teachers attended because they were concerned about the budget, which obviously he went into detail on, and we'll see at the January meeting.
Thank you. Joe,
Oh, thank you.
welcome.
There was a town plan and zoning commission meeting on January 2nd. Two items were approved. One was to opt out of the state requirements for temporary healthcare structures. The zoning commission felt there would be too far many complications, so they decided that we should opt out of that requirement. And they also approved the ramp for the senior center, not only for convenience for the those who are in wheelchairs and seniors, but also for emergency use. And they have scheduled another special meeting for Thursday, January 18th, to continue discussions on different proposals in regards to zoning regulation.
Thank you. Mika.
There was no EDC meeting in December. I was not able to attend the other meetings due to my incapacity.
But you're all better now.
But I
You did well.
am moving around, and we'll
Right.
attend them this month.
I think they're meeting again tomorrow
They
night,
are.
so, yeah, EPC. Okay, thank you. Joe, okay. Okay, you, David?
Yeah, Library Commission, they have their operating budget ready for submission. In the event of budgetary cuts, the commission would prefer reducing services rather than salaries so that the public understands better how it's affected by such cuts. They are still awaiting replacement of a non-functioning third boiler. The two functioning boilers have been able to keep the library comfortably heated throughout the recent bitter cold snap. Human Services, they also have their budget ready for submission with minimal increases, which were necessitated by mandated services. The department, this may affect their budget going forward. The department has been asked by the state, at the request of the Connecticut State Youth Services, to become formally involved with their truancy program, acting as a layer between school counseling department and the police. The Human Services is investigating possibility of a tri-town collaboration. What this means is, in the past, when the student has been truant, or chronically truant, the truant officers get involved, then they refer the student to the counseling department at the school, and from the counseling department, if it can't be resolved there, then it goes to the police department. The Human Services has been asked to step in as a layer in between to see if they can somehow prevent that student from getting involved with police services. So that's going to require additional personnel. Bethany has none. Orange has some, so that's why they're looking at this tri-town collaboration. COOPOP had no meeting. I did go to the Recreation Commission because I knew that.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome. That Nico would not be able to. They also have their budget. Their lack of space for ongoing programs is still a concern. Many of the recreation programs compete with space for school programs. So there's some issue there. The rec wants to reinstate the summer swim program, which was cut last season for budgetary reasons. The program received numerous inquiries. It was very popular, and it was used as a supplement to the morning day camp program. Additionally, it would be structured to be profitable. So as explained to me, they hire only enough staff to cover the income from the program. So at least we'll break even, but usually we'll make a profit. And the third thing is
that using the beach or pool?
this is using the pool at the country club.
Oh, okay.
Additionally, the department would like to run a summer children's sports camp program with golf, tennis, and swimming lessons, a driving range, private swim lessons, and several sports clinics, including archery, swimming, tennis, golf, and soccer. That would be either profitable or self-sustaining. So that's what they're looking at going forward.
Reminds us of warm weather. All those things.
eventually.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? Joe, you're all set?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All righty. Not 6 o'clock yet, so I think we can jump ahead. I think, let's see, do we want to do any Amity Board of Ed thing yet? Or we wait for- Is Chip coming? No. Okay. Should we go ahead with you guys? Yeah. Right, ready to go? Okay, you're up. Hi, guys, welcome. Happy New Year. Hi. I have a little intro, if that's okay. I'll just introduce you guys a little bit. Okay. With regard to the proposed old firehouse use, I'll briefly recap the history here in case people haven't been tuning in to our meetings. Once the building is ready for use, we know that there have already been a recommendation to move the Recreation Department's fitness room from the center building to Bay 2 and Bay 3. I heard recently that I guess up above the currently where the rec department, where they have the gym, they have barbells, and the guys, every time they drop them, tiles fall out in the ceiling down below. So it's getting kind of scary over there. So hopefully we can get that accomplished as part of this project. And as mentioned earlier, we're in discussion with the Amity Woodbridge Historical Society regarding an idea for shared use of A1. That leaves the upstairs portion of the building, which will require a build-out to suit whatever purpose the Board of Selectmen decide for it. I've previously shared with you that the Chip Dumais, Amity Superintendent, approached me with an intriguing proposal a little while ago. He's not able to be here. I guess he had a family emergency. So he sent his team, and you guys can introduce yourselves here to discuss the proposal. I'd just like to highlight again the role of shared services, shared space, and other collaborative agreements can play in helping to keep costs down in our town. So I express my appreciation. You can pass it along to Chip, to Dr. Dumais, and the Amity team for your enthusiasm and energy. I was very excited when you guys went with us that day, taking up the challenges that face us, and by developing both this proposal for the old firehouse space and also the IT contract, which is coming up as well tonight. So I will introduce Mary, and go ahead. You guys can introduce yourselves. Thank you, so I don't do it wrong.
Director of Pupil Services for Amity and a longtime Woodbridge resident.
And I'm Tricia Fitzgerald. I'm a special education teacher and the transition coordinator.
And Tricia will be the teacher that will be running the Amity Transition Program, which is the name we've given it right now until we finalize exactly. And our hope is that we can get a nice community space, old firehouse. I'll let Trish talk a little bit about the goals of our transition program, but we see this as being our home base for our students 18 to 21. And the need, there are students that we do provide programming for until they're 21. And this coming year, we will have 5 students prior to this service. In the past, we have placed those students in place outside of the district at a cost for somewhere, I'd say, $40,000 to $50,000 per student plus transportation. We're looking to build our own program that will be of high quality and will provide students programming in their community. I'll let Trish talk a little bit about the program and what we see it fitting into the firehouse.
Sure. We've already begun sort of transitioning into this program with the group of seniors that I have. And the goal is to take students who are past 18, between 18 and 21, and bring them out of the high school. The state has recommended that we not have them in the high school anymore, but we transition them more to work and community. These students are already an integral part of their community, which is another reason why we really don't want to have to outplace them to other surrounding towns who currently have existing programs. Stratford has one in their municipal building. North Haven has one in their town building, and a couple of them have some at colleges too. But we're really at the point with Amity where it's time for us to develop a program for ourselves. So when Mary and I had an opportunity to see the firehouse, which I never would have thought of that space, I have to be honest with you, what a wonderful space for us to have a program there where the students would meet in the morning. They still need some academic instruction. They'll have speech and things like that. And then we would go out to work. We do volunteer work, and they would be taught in the community like they are now. We go to Stop and Shop. They're taught how to use money. We go to local restaurants, and they're taught how to speak and order and to use their money there. But Currently, we were working at Massaro Farm, Pez, Burlington Coat Factory, AC Moore, Granda Pizza. The three Amity towns have just been wonderful in welcoming this idea and supporting our students. And it's great because when they reach age 21 and state services will take over for them, this is where they're going to be. And these are the people who love these kids. When we go to Stop and Shop, there are so many people from the community who say hello to them. We had an opportunity last year to work with the senior citizens and in the food bank. And I envision that if we're so close right there at the firehouse that we would be able to continue that again next year. And so I hope that you guys will take it into consideration.
Do you have
Does anyone
questions
have
for
any
us?
questions to start? And there's obviously, I think at this point, we would ask, I think the motion will be that I will ask the board to allow us to begin to explore negotiations, because obviously there's monetary piece and legal piece and all that. So, so go ahead and ask your questions first, and then we'll get into that.
Necessary for that space to work for your program.
The requirements, of course, would be through the building department and the fire marshal, et cetera. But then what we would need is, and we would hope for, is, of course, a bathroom, a functioning bathroom, a kitchen space, which I think is already somewhat laid out, and then a workspace for the students and maybe a small office space.
So are you teaching these students life skills?
As a part of the program.
As part of the program? Okay.
Life skills, functional skills, vocational skills, community skills. It's all getting ready for adulthood type of
So does that include things like cooking and laundry and
yes.
Okay, maintaining an
They
apartment.
do have that as part of their program at the
Got it.
high school. This would be just a continuation of that.
And this would be non-residential?
Correct.
Right. And how much time per day would you utilize that space?
Probably a 6 and a 6, like similar to school day, 6
Okay.
to 6.5 hour. 8 to 2:30, something around that ballpark. We're also looking at a college site to spend some time on a college campus.
Mm-hmm.
So the students will be in and out. They maybe only a few will be here at a time, but we have other options that we're looking at for, sort of typical peer time.
Feel the capacity that's required in terms of the number of students that space is sufficient for?
I don't know what that is. We'd have to find that out. I mean, it looks like a very large space. I don't know what the capacity is.
And would you need exclusive use of that space, or could it be put to other purposes when you're not in classing there? Classes there.
That's a good question. I mean, we will be putting computers and some sort of equipment up there, so I just want to make sure that things are secure, I'm imagining, when we're not there.
So will there be a point in time when we receive a detailed proposal?
Yes.
Then we
So
can
there's
ask-
there's an old firehouse committee that Beth mentioned. The next step would be to meet with superintendent and with Mary and with the staff.
I mean, that was a
to
good
program this.
Right.
Yeah,
I
to
think we
overview.
needed- Right.
Yeah.
to program, to find out if the program works, the funding works, if we have, all those details. And then we'd come back to you with
How it ties
that.
in with other use.
Right.
Correct.
Is it
Correct.
exclusive? Is
Yeah.
it
This
not
is real
exclusive?
preliminary, but I wanted to hear it from them, as to what they're thinking.
The outplacement expense that you mentioned, $40,000 per student, is that all, if you keep them here, what portion of that is there a savings of?
The savings would be, Tricia is already on the payroll, so we're not hiring any new staff. So any savings we have is in essence, except for the expenses of the program, whatever the rent or utilities, et cetera, would be, everything else would be saving. The following year, there will be 8 students, Amity students, that require it, and the next year, 14. So now is the time. The bubble is here.
So the savings is to the Amity.
Well, and I think the idea here is to use the savings to the Amity district to help outfit the cost of the building.
Or whatever, that'll all be in the.
Correct.
Right.
The details will be in the proposal,
It's
right?
all a TBD. We have to begin to build. I just wanted permission from the board, I think, to begin to go further. If you guys think it's a good idea to pursue this.
I think it's worth further exploration.
Yes, okay.
I have to say,
Anybody?
just when I was on the presentations that, people that came to us with ideas for the fire, this is by far, in my opinion, one of the best solutions for that space. I think just, again, it accomplishes our goal of serving our community, which is really what we wanted to do with the space, and making it so that it was for the community, which is perfect.
So,
No, just as long as there's a consensus.
is there a consensus from everyone that we should, Tony and I,
Definitely.
begin this?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay.
Thank you.
Involving legal help as well.
Can we expect the other towns to contribute to Woodbridge for this program? Since we have the space.
It's in the Amity budget.
I mean, it's Amity budget is all
So
three towns.
that's
so-
three towns, right?
Yeah.
Right,
So,
but so the 3 towns are saving money, I think we're
Right.
Yeah,
3
right,
towns
right.
are saving money. All that has to be played into this
Correct.
proposal to see how
Right.
much we're gonna spend.
It's a good thought.
Correct.
Yep. Okay,
Correct.
Because there may be
I like it.
savings, townwide
Okay.
savings.
okay.
In
That's
addition-
correct.
Gotta earn my pay, you know?
Okay, so
Thank
thank you
you.
so much. And
Thank you very much.
we'll get in touch with Chip, or I'm
Perfect.
sure he'll be in touch with us. Thank you very much. We should give him our best.
Weren't they gonna talk about the proposed site?
Chip was gonna talk
Oh,
about
Chip,
it.
okay.
So I could talk about that later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tony will probably have
No
you doing
problem.
that.
Yeah.
I don't think we have 5 more minutes, so we got to do something that's 5 minutes. How about if we go to item 10? 824 review requests. I hate when we start doing this stuff, they're going to get all mixed up in the packet here. Okay, item 10A, this is regarding 824 review requests for town plan and zoning. As you'll note in your packet, we have received a response from town planning and zoning related to the, which we referred to them on December 18th, regarding the installation of the ADA compliant ramp at 4 Meeting House Lane. Dear board members, this is to serve to inform you that the regular meeting of January 2nd, 2008, the Woodbridge Town Planning and Zoning Commission acted on your referral dated December 18th, 2017 for a report from the commission pursuant to section 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes regarding the installation of an ADA compliant ramp to access the Woodbridge Senior Center located in the senior center of the center building at 4 Meeting House Lane. It was a unanimous vote of the commission to approve the referral for the proposed ADA compliant ramp to access the Woodbridge Senior Center located in the senior center of the center building at 4 Meeting House Lane. Signed, Alan Lipson, secretary. So that's done. And then, oh, I'm sorry. Isn't that
That's the
what-
same one you just read. They didn't have a copy.
Oh, you didn't have a copy. I apologize. Jeepers, I didn't know you didn't get it. So I'm looking at it saying, I think I just read this. Okay, good. And then the other issue that came up, the police commission has had a request in for an 824 review of the carport. Apparently, the police commission, if I understand it, is meeting tomorrow night to refer this to us. But the problem is this, maybe you can address this better. The steep grant expires in March.
Yeah,
So we have to get this done.
and we're trying to
Ahead of
get an
time.
extension on that, but I
Right.
figured it would just be helpful to move this
Right.
along a little.
So this
So-
is the same money that we used for the
Radio.
tower,
For the tower, correct?
Correct.
Yep,
right?
that's correct.
And this is the money that we didn't put in.
Correct.
And
So I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So we've spent some of it.
We have.
So we still have to hit that.
No,
spend it all.
we're working on an extension for the remainder.
So what do you think the prognosis is?
Good. She just said to get the paperwork in and it shouldn't be a problem.
Because I mean, we've.
Because it's
executed
not like we're
most of it.
sitting around doing nothing.
Right.
Right. Sitting around doing nothing.
Right.
If you recall, I pulled up the minutes of October 11th, our meeting, where we voted unanimously to authorize Januski and Humes to prepare bid documents for the construction of the 2 carports in the police parking lot. I think they came and did a whole proposal to us, if you remember. And anyway, we did vote unanimously to go forward. So because March date is coming, I would suggest to keep this project on schedule. Tonight, we consider a motion to send the request to TPZ for an 824 review of the site plan entitled Proposed Carport for the Woodbridge Police Department, 4 Meeting House Lane, Woodbridge, Connecticut, as we approved in October. And I believe we did let the police commission know, or police department know, that we were going to go ahead with this, even though they have it on their agenda for just because otherwise it'll end up being in our February meeting, and we only have a month then.
So we're sending this along contingent upon.
Approval from the police commission tomorrow night, if that's okay with everyone. So do I need a motion to do that?
Yeah.
I do? Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay, thank you so much. And now it's, 6 o'clock. So we will begin public comments. Anyone from public comments? Come on up.
I'll go
Please, please.
before I go to sleep.
Welcome, Happy New Year.
Happy and healthy.
Thank you. Happy, healthy, I like it.
Healthy. Cheryl Lipson, Brookwood Drive. I have a draft of the survey for the country club, and in reading it,
Cheryl, I might stop you. That's not the final
no,
iteration.
draft.
But there's
Draft.
been other drafts after that one.
Okay, so
So
maybe.
stay tuned for more tonight.
Okay, but-
it's okay. I just wanted to let
But if I
everyone know.
do this, maybe you can make notes if you think they're
Oh,
relevant.
absolutely.
So,
We want to hear from everyone.
bless you, dear. So bear with me as I go through this, please. I'll try to make it as short as possible. In looking at it initially, my initial reaction was, this is geared, it's skewed, and it's skewed toward development. And if I might, the introduction by the first selectman in the first paragraph speaks about the town to purchase the property primarily to ensure appropriate development of the parcel. When I see development, I think building. And I'm wondering if perhaps different verbiage could have been used, like maybe appropriate use of the parcel or the direction the town should be taking regarding the parcel. By seeing development, that immediately puts my short hairs up, number one. But I believe it also sends a message to the residents saying, we want to build something here and we want your input on which way we should be building it. So that's my first comment. Second paragraph, when they were talking about the expenses, I believe the previous administration overstated the expenses of what it would cost to shore up the clubhouse and make gradual improvements on the property. But I can also say that I believe the previous administration allowed additional deterioration in effect to encourage the demolition and selling off of the property, but that's my interpretation. If we would, looking at the proposals, proposal number one, it doesn't say anything about how much things would cost. It just says the town increases taxes to subsidize the operations and takes on additional bonding debt. That's scary. That, again, makes residents say, I'm taxed enough. I don't want this. And it puts a negative on anything that possibly could be a positive. With regard to the pool, if I remember correctly, and I don't have all the numbers from this past year, but if it had been advertised earlier, and I know there was a problem setting it up, there was cement that wasn't right.
That was last year.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
This year,
yeah.
we already got it out in October. It's already gone out.
Okay, see, that's the whole thing. If you get it out sooner, you're going to get
Right.
more people responding, and I really believe that property will pay for itself. And I visited it twice. I'm not a member of the pool, but I was so surprised, pleasantly surprised by what I saw there with what they had done with what they had. And if they had a little bit more backing, one from the town, two monetary, so I'm talking about PR as well as perhaps a little bit of funding. I think it's really a plus for the community. And I saw in different proposals here that the pool has been crossed out from things. So, okay, number two. I'm wondering if they're talking about the golf course. I'm wondering if by contractual agreement, the operation of the the golf course could be the total responsibility of the lessee, not the town. And I'm not an attorney, and I didn't speak to my in-house attorney, but I was just reading that and I was wondering, is there a way that that could happen? So that's number one. Number two, I'm wondering how much, when they talk about the additional operating budget, how much would that be? What would the cost be per household? And where does the contingency budget fall into this? Every so often when money is short and I hear Tony and there's another pocket and I'm saying, where's this pocket? I mean, let me in.
If this winter keeps up, it's all going to be gone.
Oh,
We've had
good.
3
Then we'll all move to
snowstorms on weekends, 3
Scottsdale.
snowstorms on
We're all
weekends.
going to Scottsdale.
Pray for snow
That's all.
during the week. You can help us, please.
Okay, so,
Sorry.
fine, I'll turn my heat lamp on outside. But I'm just wondering, this additional operating budget, people read things and they get nervous. If you gave them a number saying $25 additional per household annually, I think that would make a big difference in getting people to think perhaps either in a more neutral way or maybe differently than they're inclined to because of what they're reading and they're freaking out. Number 3, I believe the statement is misleading because they're assuming the town
Can you tell me what number 3 is, because I'm not on
The
the same
proposal
line.
number 3 says, sell a portion of the land to have age-restricted over 55 housing built. Use the money from the land sale to pay down the original land debt and defray the operating costs, pools crossed out, of recreation options on portion of the land the town keeps.
Who's here?
The statement is misleading because it assumes that the town can pay down the outstanding debt and still have money remaining to do things for the recreation department. And that's not necessarily the case at all. So, no. Number 4. Actually, it's 3, 4, and 5. Here, number 4. If as stated, I'll read it. Sell the entire parcel to have age-restricted, over 55 housing built. Again, they took out the pool. And the possibility of golf. It's back in. Okay. And golf operations restarted with a restriction that a portion of the parcel remain as open space. If, as stated, the entire parcel is sold, then the pool would have to go as well because it's part of the parcel. So the possibility of a smaller golf course is not realistic. It would have to be a condition of the sale. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm reading this and it's just not making sense to me. So, but I think that's correct. If you look at items 3, 4, and 5, the last one would be sell the entire parcel, single-family homes, no age restriction, and use the money from the land sale to offset costs of additional children in the public schools and other town services required with the anticipated population growth, public safety, road maintenance, etc. Actually, whether you put 55 and older or single-family, no age restriction housing in, you're still going to have an increase in town services because whether it's children in school or older people, here's a scenario. Somebody I know has called the fire department for assistance 3 times in the past. I believe it's 6 or 7 weeks. As you get an aging population, you're going to have more things that you have to deal with, whether it be people falling in their house, whether people turning on a stove perhaps and walking away from it, whether you're going to need fire, police, or EMS. I believe the statement is misleading as well because you're just shifting. One's going to be in an education, one's going to be dealing with your aging population.
It's
and I
not
think
here anymore. You're speaking to a whole different
Oh, God.
survey.
And I
don't
really
know-
worked on this, Beth.
I don't know how you got this, but I'm sorry.
Okay, well, all right.
I'm sorry. Okay.
So one of the things is, and I'm wondering, is this, it says, please circle 4 things you dislike. Is that still in this survey?
What is it now?
Circle 4 things you dislike most about Woodbridge?
Yes.
Things you like better.
Dislike.
No, dislike.
Yeah, that's there too.
It's there.
Yep, that's there.
Okay.
That was, Rick will speak about that when I think at some point. when we
Okay,
get there.
how about-
Stay with us tonight for the discussion.
Well, move it up, honey, or give me caffeine. Closed-door politics and the lack of transparency that was in previous administrations and hopefully isn't continuing in this. The one thing that also I noticed is nothing has been mentioned about zoning changes that would be required if you were to do any of this building. And my last thing is, which really grabbed me, item number 13, please tell us a few things about your self for statistical purposes or only. Which political party are you currently registered? That has no bearing whatsoever and I take major issue with that. So, thank you for your time, and I'll
told Rick
stay
that was
tuned.
coming.
I'm sorry.
We told our survey maven about that one, so they'll address that. Thank you, Cheryl. Hi, Muffy. Happy New Year.
Thank you, and you too.
Thank you.
I'm Martha German, and I live at 1170 Johnson Road, which, as most of you know, is right across the street from the country club. And that's the topic I'm here to talk about also. I did seek out a draft of the survey and am making comments based on that, so perhaps some of them will already have been addressed in the next version. I'm speaking tonight to express concerns over the CCW property questionnaire. After the November Board of Selectmen's meeting, I spoke with Mr. Bordeaux about two issues. First, numerous residents, such as new families and those living far from the country club, are unaware of the history of the town's ownership of the property. They need a clear timeline of the decisions and actions from 2009 to the present. Second, they need clear understanding of the consequences of the choices that they make on the questionnaire. They should be aware that on May 18th, 2009, residents voted 435 yes to 34 no to purchase the 155 acres to preserve it from development. David Reese of Senior Care Development, LLC, this is a quote from the bulletin, was planning a 9-hole golf course along with age-restricted housing, and we purchased the property to keep that from happening. In December 13th of 2011, residents voted down, that's 587 yes to 1,190 no, a Toll Brothers proposal to build 58 townhouses on 17 acres of the property. In 2016, another Toll Brothers condo proposal was withdrawn because of residents' opposition. The people filling out this questionnaire need to be aware that both of the proposed over 55 housing options would require changing the zoning from the current residential zoning. They should know that 400 residents signed a petition requesting no change to the residential zoning on the property. And they need to know that a zoning change at CCW would open up the town to requests for zoning changes and development elsewhere in town, thus endangering the rural character, which is a cherished hallmark of Woodbridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hi, Kathy. Happy New
Hello.
Year.
Thank you. Same to you. Kathy Wick, Rimmon Road. I had some similar issues as the two previous ladies, so I will spare you repetition, but there were a few additional things I wanted to mention. And I don't know if this has been changed from the version that I've seen, but I do think it's very important that a survey such as this be framed appropriately. And this first sentence that Cheryl mentioned, the townspeople voted to authorize the town to purchase the property primarily to ensure appropriate development of the parcel. I think that's not true at all. In fact, I have a letter here from former First Selectman Ed Sheehy that was sent to everyone who lived in town in spring of 2009. And I'd like to give this to Mrs. Shaw when I'm finished, if she would add it to the minutes of the meeting so that everyone can see it. Very few people are probably as compulsive as I am and have saved it. So what Ed was writing about here is describing issues around the purchase of Country Club. And what I want to read is the final paragraph here. And what he wrote was, if the purchase is approved, the town will acquire 150 acres of beautiful open space to be enjoyed by residents for generations. It would be irresponsible for the board to allow the property to fall into the hands of developers. Accordingly, you will have the opportunity to vote on whether or not to purchase the property at the annual town meeting on May 18th. I think it's pretty clear that Ed Sheehy viewed this as preventing development on the property. The purchase was to prevent development, and the people who came to that town meeting on May 18th in 2009, that's what they thought they were voting for.
Thank you. Hi, Roger. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Hi, Roger Sherman, 5 Fairview Road. Haven't been in town for a while. I've been away working in New York, and it's a lot different place. It's a lot nicer environment, country, not a lot of hustle and bustle going on. And that's why I come back here. I make my money in New York City. I come back here and I support local businesses and the people of Woodbridge. And I received a copy of the survey. I read the first paragraph and I just kind of put it away. What I'd like to happen is consider, the people that really live around that piece of property. We live there, we pay our taxes, and I think our property values are getting a hit right now. But I'm just hoping we come up with something good for the property. Not necessarily development, but something that's good for the whole town. The past years are past tense. We've spent money, and we can't look what we have spent. We can look forward to what we will spend in the future. And I think if we put some money into that property, I think the whole town will benefit. So I hope some good ideas go into the survey, not necessarily pointing in one typical direction. But I'm looking forward to see the final draft, and then I will comment on that. I'm not going to criticize something that's not, ironclad right now. So, thank you, and I hope you all make the best decisions for the town and the residents that live around it too. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comment? Okay. Thank you very much. Well, stay tuned if you can. Stay. I don't have coffee. I'm sorry, Cheryl, but that's the way it is. So. Okay. Back to, we did liaison reports, public comments. You want to do the proposed IT contract now? That's up? Yeah, that's next on the agenda? Okay. So we'll go to item 7B, the proposed IT contract. Chip, as I said, was going to be here, but he had a family emergency, so Tony's going to step up and give us that. This is a good beginning of our
you have a copy of the
vendor consolidation, right?
Correct.
I'm very excited about this.
Currently, the town and the of Woodbridge, meaning when I say town, I mean the town hall and the library and the center, the human services and recreation, have one vendor and one way we handle IT services, outsourced vendor. The police department has an in-house person that primarily is responsible for their IT. And the fire department has a separate outsourced vendor for IT. The goal here is to have all of that under one umbrella and to move forward with one way to do things, one way to, the consistent ways to purchase equipment and policies and all the things that go along with IT, security and backup, and so we were looking at different models, and the one that we've liked the best was to use the Amity School District's IT Services Department, which we did some research on and we spoke with extensively, and we were impressed with their procedures and their help desk and their policies and what they can do for us. So currently the town and the police department are moving forward with this. The fire department's under contract, which has expires at the end of this year, as I understand it. So won't yet be under this arrangement.
June 30th fiscal year.
Yeah. So we'll move forward, we'll discuss that with them as that comes closer, but for the remainder of the departments, it's our, under this contract to use Amity for our IT services. This came along as an idea because there's some other towns that use this model. And when I was researching this, there were other towns that use this model where, for instance, it's the town of South Windsor, I believe, does IT for several towns around there. So they have a bigger department, and then they outsource their services to several other towns at a very reduced cost, a lot of efficiencies. And so when I came back here, I started investigating that, and figured probably the best place to start would be Amity, because they have the biggest and the most professional IT department that we were aware of. So that's what this attempts to do. We are currently they're just charging us for their rates that they pay their employees. And so we are currently looking to do this at a certain number of hours it says it in here, per week. Pardon?
12 hours?
12 hours, yeah.
12 hours, yeah.
And we'll evaluate that as we go forward. And the rate is 12 monthly payments equals $25,267, which is less than we pay our vendors exclusively. And then they'll be adding police and hopefully fire on top of that. So it'd be significant savings to the town, and at the same time get a very professional operation. So that's our proposal here.
I had a question for Tony this afternoon on page 3 at the top of item 3D. All communication between Amity and Woodbridge shall be directed through the Director of Technology at Amity or the Help Desk email account and a representative designated by Woodbridge, and that will be right now Karen Crosby will be,
right,
and Sergeant Thomas for the police
So
department.
initially, Sergeant Thomas will probably be very involved in the because of all the background knowledge and all that he has with their operation. But our goal is to sort of get some more involvement with Amity and less reliance on one person for their operation, which is what they currently have, and also helped with economies of scale in terms of server installations. The police department is currently looking to replace some servers, as are we. So we're hopeful we want to merge that and create one IT.
Is the timeline on that project, Tony, consistent with what we would be doing here? In other words, we have time to make a decision on that, to actually have people who would be supporting us influence and or
for the servers?
For the servers.
Correct. Yeah, we both held off on both of our projects until we had this in place to see if that was something that would be helpful going forward. Yes.
So we're confident they have the capacity to serve us, because they haven't been in the past. So I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. So that was a very big concern of ours, and so that they'd be responsive. You mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, this sounds great. I love the idea.
So the whole idea is to review this on a quarterly basis to see how it works in terms of there's a priority 1, 2, 3 and an emergency response. That was very big for the police department.
Right.
So, if something happens in the middle of the night and they need emergency response, they should be able to get that.
So Amity believes they can provide the capacity
to
service our need.
That's correct.
I note that there's a 45-day termination.
Right.
For no cause. So
that's correct. We can, at any time, we can terminate the agreement. They can terminate the agreement. 45 days just gives us enough time to get another vendor on board to help us.
So we use words like we will discuss it with the fire department. Why wouldn't this? I mean, I think we should go into this with the idea that
that's the idea.
Come
that's correct.
July 1, the fire department is
that's the idea.
under this. And
that's our plan.
That's our plan.
Sure that they have the capacity for that too.
That's been built into this.
They just have a contract that is unfortunately ends. We have 6 months.
Part of the review for this. Part of the review for this is if it's 12 hours a week and it's basically an hourly rate. So if it turns out we only need 10 hours per week, they'll reduce the rate. If it turns out we need 14,
well, they won't reduce.
We'll increase it.
is it?
It's an hourly rate, which-
It would reduce the overall cost.
Correct, right, it reduces the cost that we would pay them based on how many hours we use consistently on a quarterly basis.
How do the service level targets associated with this compare to the service level agreement that we have with the outsourced vendors? Do we know?
In terms of ours,
Correct.
this is exactly how we do it currently.
Okay. So like the 12 hours you feel is sufficient in terms of?
So if, for instance, emergencies within 1 hour, priority 1 is 1 to 2 hours, priority 2 is 2 to 4 hours, priority 3 is 3 to 8 hours.
We're not exceeding, we don't feel we're anywhere exceeding the 12-hour requirement now.
Oh, in terms of how many, yeah, no.
Historically, on average, I guess.
We do, no, the police department's a wild card there. I'm
Right,
not sure exactly. That's the big wild card for us. It would be half that amount for the town. All the other departments, maybe 6 hours a week, 5 hours. Some weeks it's never, other weeks it's 12 hours. So probably averages about 6. So we wanted, it's designed so that we can evaluate. It's new for them, it's new for us, but we can evaluate it, and we'll certainly give you an update as we go forward with it.
So you'll be monitoring it as to time, as to response,
As to, are they fixing, correct, time, response, cost, are they fixing the problems that we need them to fix? We wanted a proactive component in this where they come around to each department on a weekly basis to make sure that all the needs are being met and to make sure that we can do things more efficiently.
So who's in charge of all those measurables? You again?
Yeah.
Something else?
Yes, but
it is important, at least to
very
start,
important.
that we have these metrics.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyone have any other questions for Tony or?
The opportunity to look at any potential saving or any potential economies of scale in terms of their server.
I'll give you an example. They have equipment that they use that maybe we can use that that's gone through their life cycle, like it was a Wi-Fi spots where they have the Wi-Fi in the building. Maybe they're using a higher level because their computer use is a lot more, but we have just a few. So instead of them getting rid of the equipment, they would let us use it, and then we don't have to buy it. That's that sort of synergy and cooperation has already started to develop. We're hoping that this is just one of many arrangements that we could evolve over time with the cooperation and consolidation of services. This was an easy one to sort of put together and to figure out.
Any other comments? So, Jerry's, sorry. Okay.
Is there any potential to look at, or is it even worth looking at telecom as
we certainly do that. We're hopeful that part of their technology will be other, related.
Only because if it's IT, it's become more of an IT type of a platform as opposed to
audio and video services and other related IT.
Thank you.
Good, thanks.
Okay.
Anyone else? So, Jerry, you reviewed the contract.
I did.
And I'm sure Joe got it.
And Amity's lawyer approved it also.
Okay, good. So now, I guess, just need a motion to, what is it exactly? I'm going to be signing this, correct?
Correct.
Yep, on behalf of the town to approve the.
So I make a motion to
Thank you.
authorize First Selectmen to sign the IT services contract with the Amity Regional District, I guess.
Yeah, it's called Technology Services Agreement, whatever,
Agreement.
and dated whatever, and I'll take care of it. As presented,
Dated when you
as
sign it.
presented tonight.
Yes,
Okay.
presented, it's in our package.
Right, okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay, thank you, everyone. Item 8, Connecticut Economic Resource Center. Courtney's on the agenda, but, oh, sure she is. Okay, I didn't see you. Hi. Have a little introduction about you guys, just in case. I do it every time. Thank you. Welcome. Courtney's here again from CERC. That is the Connecticut Economic Resource Center, in case anyone from TV Land hasn't watched in the past. She sent us a revised proposal, which is in your packet, after we had some discussion at our December meeting. And I expect that our next steps after tonight will be for Tony and I to work out some specific contract level details based on what we hear from you tonight and your feelings about what the priorities and timing should be. And then we'll hopefully have some specific funding request details ready for approval by the Board of Selectmen, either in February or perhaps we can add it to the agenda of one of our joint budget meetings, depending on how soon we get it together with the Board of Finance later this month. So I will ask you guys to introduce yourselves again, and welcome, and thank you for coming, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. I'm Bob Santi. I'm the CEO of the Connecticut Economic Resource Center.
I'm Courtney Hendrickson, Vice President of Municipal Services for the Connecticut Economic Resource Center.
Hi, I'm Sadie Cord. I work.
Hello back there.
Hi. I am the Municipal Services Associate at the Connecticut.
So has everyone had a chance to look at it? Does anyone have any questions, or would you guys like to sum up? Yeah. I'll give you guys the floor first.
Yeah. We're discussing how to do this.
No worries.
Well, if you recall at the last meeting, we presented a proposal that had a number of items in it. But we'd also had some discussions with the first selectman about the possibility of doing what we're now calling a fiscal health analysis for the community. And it's interesting to hear the discussion about what options you might have for development or the lack of development in town. And really, it would be very useful to know what the history has been about the value of your grand list. The retail, the commercial and industrial retail component of the grand list versus the residential component of the grand list, how they have produced, I'll use the word produced, over time. What property provides the most value, the production, as far as production of tax revenue is concerned. Very few towns have this kind of longitudinal analysis. So what we did after having the conversation with you at the last meeting is went back and brainstormed what the elements of a fiscal health analysis would be. And we looked at both the revenue side of the revenue side and the expense side of the budget. So what we propose is to create, with your help, a group of similar towns that you would like to compare yourself to, and then look at a 20-year history of those group, that cohort of towns, and show how your grand list has performed compared to those other towns. Then we would also look at the expense side of the budget, and as well as we could, based on data availability, because some of you probably know that comparative data on elements of town budgets is not that great in Connecticut. But there are some new sources that we think we can use to do that. So that's primarily what we've proposed here, and we're proposing that we do it for you at a discounted price, because what we'd like to do is work collaboratively with you on the design of this project. So that's generally what's in there. You want to add something to that?
Thank you. So, and then that's the new component, so that makes the revision. And then just to remind you all that underlying that we kept in there per your request is to help staff the Economic Development Commission. So to help guide them to create meaningful economic development, progress, and momentum for Woodbridge. So that remains, as does the commercial property strategy that we talked about for Amity. So you'll see those again in the revised proposal.
The 20,000 value and the 15,000 for municipal fiscal health. I don't want all your trade secrets. I'm just
no, I won't give any trade secrets. Well, we're like a consulting firm. We're a nonprofit, but we obviously have hourly rates that we charge. We have done similar work. We know what our economists will have to, how much time they're going to have to take to do this analysis. It really is, yeah, and then discounted. So that's primarily it.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay,
And
so,
also, I was waiting for Mika to ask the question.
No, actually, I'm extremely excited in terms of what they propose. And the information, like you just described, I think is critical in terms of what we need to do in order to move forward, is to understand exactly how we compare where we're spending our money and where the money's coming from and where we need to focus on. So, but the proposal was very comprehensive, I thought. Thank you. And I'm anxious to get started.
thank you. So there is obviously a budgetary portion to this proposal, and I just wondered from all of you what you were prepared to talk about tonight, and we can sort of, I believe, start funding,
EDC portion.
starting funding the EDC beginning in February, because we have money in this year's budget that we can use toward that, without, as far as doing some attendance and giving them some guidance beginning in February. They're meeting tomorrow night, but they're not prepared to have you come till the next meeting. And then as far as other items like the grand list, do we have a breakdown of that? Not as to how much that's going to cost to do that comprehensive?
15,000.
I had a family emergency yesterday, so I kind of...
It's 15,000. What's the timetable on that? Does it say the time? Do you have a rough timetable on that?
I don't know that we did.
No, but
You want to work it within your budget cycle.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, how can we
We'd have to
accommodate that, but I don't think we.
perhaps
That's what
we
I'm
can,
wondering, yeah.
can we do it into
You want to do it now?
going forward?
I'm sorry, what portion, the analysis you described earlier, in terms of the comparisons of the different towns, 20 years looking back, what portion is that in terms of the overall?
That's 15.
Project.
That's
That's
15.
that's
15,
yeah.
okay.
yeah, that's, but I mean, we've waited this long not to have it. Can't we just try to work that in?
You could just put next year's budget. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's, to me, that's so essential in order to
I agree.
truly get started.
I'm
So
just
I
saying
don't
we
know
can
why.
spend it in the next, we're in the budget cycle now.
So what are you
There's no
saying?
awarding
I'm
money
not
for
sure.
Good, or you can do part of it now, and that's what I was wondering.
Could
how
that be
long
a
it's
portion, so you do, because the 15,000 perhaps we don't have
Would be
between now and July
split in
1.
th-
correct?
in
like
three
two
generally.
parts or
Yeah.
Oh, three, yeah.
Yeah, we
Something
usually
like
do.
that would be helpful to us.
Well, do we have any money in this?
We have money contingency, but I'd prefer to wait. Usually, we try not to spend any money out of that until like March
Snowstorms.
to make
you
sure
know,
we don't get a
again.
lot of snow.
Right.
And
But, so we're talking about a three installment. Let's say we said start tomorrow. And we
It
get
would be a
this
three
step
installment.
5, 5, and 5. Quarterly? How was that?
yeah, that's what I was wondering.
How was
Traditionally, we do it upon signature of the contract is the first.
5 up front.
The draft, report is done. That's the second, and then the final.
So
is the
how
third.
long will the draft report
That's
typically take?
totally
Yeah.
part of, but
Roughly.
If you're trying to figure out whether you can do something in the next fiscal year, I think that.
Like
Well, I was-
5 now and then
Well, if we
10
did,
next year.
let's say we said start tomorrow, there's 5, right?
Yeah.
So when's the next 5 come due?
That's
I mean, when you would,
Yeah.
probably into.
We invoice you when you'd like us to.
July 1.
July 1.
we can accommodate.
That's a good answer.
That's your wonder.
July-
That's what I was
July
wondering.
one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we can do that.
Can we get 5 up now?
We could.
Yeah.
So I would go along with that.
Okay.
So I'm curious, the conventional wisdom is that residential properties cost you more in services and business properties generate more in revenue. And you've looked at this in other towns. Have you ever come up with any surprises in this formula?
I don't think so. I think that's probably right.
Right.
But I want to reiterate something that I think you probably said the last time. The question is what does the town want to do and what's consistent with your vision for your town? And therefore you would have to say, yes, it makes sense to have more density down in the Amity in order to produce greater revenues for us. And that's where we're willing to do that as a community. So that's the type of thing, I think, as we go through this analysis, having a dialogue, saying, well, yeah, we can tell you generally how much better commercial is than residential. But that doesn't answer the question for your community. It's a matter of what you're willing to do, where you're willing to do it. So we'll try and get that into the conversation as well.
Are there any milestones associated with the analysis that identifies in different, as you're doing comparisons, that identifies in different communities, different things, that different events and/or items that may have occurred. For example, some sort of development or new business moving in, a significant business moving in, things of that nature.
Yeah, I think what will happen is if you see a community that you think is similarly positioned than you, but they have 25% of their property is commercial and industrial, then you want to ask a question, how did they do that? What did they do? And that's what the analysis will do. It'll give you a quantitative number, and then we'll say qualitatively, who do we need to talk to in that town to see what they did differently than what Woodbridge did? And we'll do some of that, and I think you'll end up doing some of that as you move forward with our report. I don't think a lot of this has been done because the data just has not been available to do a lot of this, at least not readily available. You have to go to OPM, you have to get the annual records, you have to get 20 years worth, then you have to build your own spreadsheet. So now it's a little easier to get the data through this uniform chart of accounts and through regular reports that actually are up on the Connecticut Data Collaborative's website. We also house.
Okay. So, need a motion? Do we want to get something? We need a proposal?
Yeah.
What's on the agenda?
What's on?
There's no action. I don't know.
Well, no, I think you can, it's on the presentation, you can do an action.
Action is appropriate. Yeah.
I don't see action as appropriate.
Yeah, it's not on there.
But you don't need it.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Right.
Okay.
Because we typically put it there. So.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion? For what we've, okay, great, Mike. Thank you, Mika.
So I could, the only thing is I don't have the funding request, so I could certainly put that together and
We could do it.
at your joint budget.
One of our joint budget meetings. Okay, so.
In a week or so.
All right.
Unless you want me to do it now. I mean, I could.
What's the pleasure of the
No,
board?
don't we have one like 20?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Do it at the joint
He's
meeting.
saying do it right before then. So we'll just.
Because the Board of Finance will be there. You just both do it at the same time.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're just discussing phase one here.
Yes.
Is that
Yep.
correct?
Yeah, 15.
Okay. So do we need a motion? And we don't. We'll just do the whole thing that night? Or?
You could, while you're here, you might as well vote on
Vote on the actual
proposal and
approving
then
the
subject
phase
to
one.
the,
Okay.
subject to
Subject
the
to
financing.
financing, yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'd
So
like to
make,
make a motion that
thank
we,
you. Subject
that we
to
move forward with phase one of the project as outlined and presented.
tonight, subject to approval of the,
Subject to approval on the 23rd of the joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee.
all right, so we'll meet like 15 minutes early.
So I don't have it.
You don't have,
No, I had it. I just lost it. I just want to make sure.
Phase one of the municipal fiscal health.
Phase one of the,
Municipal fiscal
but we
health.
have to include the EDC staff in that motion.
Right. So I was just,
Because
I
that
was just
wasn't-
wondering, because we
Yeah,
didn't,
yeah,
we didn't
correct.
approve
You're right.
it yet,
That's,
yeah.
we got,
Okay.
that
Correct,
doesn't
yeah.
cover it all. That motion doesn't cover it.
okay, so two
So-
people talking, somebody do it
Sorry,
again.
Joe and I are on
Oh,
the same
know.
page there.
You
We're
guys had the
missing
same
the
idea
first
and both
part.
giving it to me at the same time, so,
So Mika can revise his.
If I might.
yep.
Friendly
Thank you.
motion to.
I'll make a motion that we move forward with the staffing of the Economic Development Commission in phase one of the study that we reviewed.
Could I add a friendly amendment to
For the
beginning in
fiscal health.
February with EDC?
Correct.
Right, staffing beginning in at the February meeting, beginning with EDC, the
Yes.
staffing, okay. If that's okay with you guys? Okay, Joe seconded. Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? All right, thank you, guys. Thanks for being patient with us.
Now that we've gone into the first part, can we get a little teaser for the second part here? I had a question on the funding, because you have this commercial property strategy, how you get buy-in from the commercial owners, and obviously there's going to be some, if they buy in, there'll be some expenditures on whatever, signage, beautification, trees, all that kind of stuff. How do you get funding for that? How do you go, what are the sources of funding for that?
Well,
Or
we
is that
can
to-
also
to
be a
compete?
grant writer for
What's
you.
that?
No, we have one
We
now.
just hired-
We have one.
Well, we'll support your grant writer.
Thank
It was interesting in some of the conversations that we've had with the town, that the CONDOT, this is just an aside, but CONDOT is starting planning for the third part of the tunnel.
Yep.
And I know that they basically say, if we're going to be spending money in town, and by the way, I went through the goody parking lot in order to come up here tonight. I know people know not to do that, right? They said, well, let us know what related things you'd like to do. So that's one opportunity, because if we say, and you already have a great plan that the Yale Urban Design Workshop folks did for you, the question is, how do you actualize it? And, you know, we need to, yeah, so let's pick a couple of places that make sense, and let's see if we can move those properties. And maybe one of the things we do as we review it is say, well, which ones are more likely to attract grant funds? Let's start with the ones that really will be the easiest to do and the easiest to attract funds. And we can be helpful with our relationships with the State Department of Economic and Community Development, and the Department of Transportation, deep with brownfields, if there are any brownfields issues, in supporting you. That's some of the stuff that will come out of phase 2. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Get out and enjoy the springtime. What?
I don't think it's there.
It is. Oh no, is it getting colder again? I felt like taking my coat off today. It was so lovely. Okay, thank you. And now we'll move to item 9, which is the survey regarding use of the Country Club of Woodbridge property. I'll invite Rick Bordeaux to come up. I have a little bit of an introduction again. Another, I know. Sorry. Again, because people tune in at various times, TV audiences. Again, to recap for our viewing audience, Rick Bordeaux is a social studies teacher at Amity High School and a resident of Woodbridge. He came to teaching as a second career. In his previous career, he did professional polling and statistical analysis work. He described for us at our last meeting the way he would like to involve Amity students in this quote-unquote real-world example of statistics and public opinion analysis. He has offered his talents to us as a volunteer and has worked out arrangements with the Amity administrators to do this, and we very much appreciate his work. Thank you very much. He's here tonight to walk us through some changes that have been made to reflect input from last time. I'm hopeful that tonight we can have any questions answered and take a vote to approve what will be going out to residents so that we can stay on schedule to have results for our April Board of Selectmen meeting. If we can't, if we have to continue, we will continue. I want to make sure we have this done correctly. So with that, I don't know, I almost feel like I want to reread my statement that's at the beginning of this, because the iterations that were discussed tonight are nothing like what is
right. And if I may comment, when I was here a month ago, we received some feedback, and we went back and we reworked the wording. And I think we've reworked the wording 4 times. We've had 4 different drafts between November and tonight.
Right.
So including last night to tonight.
So if
some
it's
tweaks.
okay,
Yes.
it's mini writing here, so I'm going to do my best because it's tiny. Okay. I don't have the big size one. Dear resident, when the former Woodbridge Country Club closed in 2009, townspeople voted at the May 2009 annual town meeting to authorize the town to purchase the property primarily to control the destiny of the parcel. See? The town currently owes $4.9 million in outstanding principal on this obligation, which the town reduced from the original debt of $7 million. The property was used as a golf course from the time of the town's purchase in the summer of 2009 through December of 2016. The town contracted with private companies to manage the golf course. It was multiple companies. I think 2, 3, can't remember. Okay. Thank you. The most recent manager gave the town notice that it would not renew its contract as a result of continuing monetary losses, both operational and anticipated capital costs to address the aging golf course infrastructure.
Not true.
The board. Okay. The Board of Selectmen ended golf operation as of December 2016. That is true. Currently, the Woodbridge Recreation Department continues to operate the outdoor pool at the former country club. Pool members pay a yearly fee that helps to offset the annual cost of pool operation. There are also utility and insurance costs for the clubhouse, as well as the current limited mowing and other maintenance costs, all of which are paid out of the town's operating budget currently. This time, we're asking for citizen input on an issue that will have a long-term effect on the future of our town. What should be done with the town-owned former country club of Woodbridge property? Please take a few minutes to complete and return this questionnaire by February 5th. That may have to change. 2018. The survey is an opportunity for you to vote your opinions regarding the future direction of the town. You may return this completed questionnaire to the town by mail or drop it off at one of the questionnaire return boxes. Right now, we're proposing town hall and library. Thank you for your assistance. So that's the current opening monologue. So with that, turn it over to Rick. You guys asked your questions. You have the next draft.
So, do you want me to go through the details of all the changes, or
What do you guys? No, I don't think so, unless
yeah.
you guys have questions. You all have it in your packet, right? You've all had a chance to look at it. So does anyone have any?
Well,
With
that, there was a
Sorry.
couple comments I wanted to address that were brought up by the public.
Okay, thank
the
you.
first were there's questions now on the draft that you have. It's questions 5 and 6. Please circle the 4 things you like best about Woodbridge, and please circle the 4 things you dislike most about Woodbridge. Those questions were asked in a survey that was asked in 2004. So we kept that wording exactly the same. So if you want to compare the results from 2004 to now, we thought it'd be an interesting comparison. So that's why we kept that wording the same, and those questions are in there like that. And then the question at the end that was in for statistical purposes only, we asked gender, age, how long you live in Woodbridge, and things like that. On my recommendation, we added the question regarding party registration. Because when you're doing surveys, especially on something that's a politically sensitive topic, you really should capture in your sample which party people are affiliated with. Because what we do is we find out that the sample that we get back is not necessarily as reflective as the population should be. This is statistical. There's the procedure called weighting, where we actually have the computer program adjust some of the essentially you can it's the best way to describe this is say like we get a bunch of surveys back, and for whatever reason not as many Republicans return the survey as Democrats as far as it's represented in the town demographics. So we could, what you do is you adjust the responses, and essentially the Republicans in that case their responses would count a little more in order to reflect the actual representation. So I think that's something that's very important. It's standard operating procedure in survey research to make sure that the sample that you get is an accurate representation of the population that you get. So it was on my suggestion. It's not in there for any partisan purposes whatsoever.
Initially, when I saw it, I was frightened.
Yes. I was contacted right away. Yes. So that is the reason.
What's the downside of that? Only because my inclination is that when I see it, I feel the same way as what's been represented.
I'm afraid that if we leave it out, I mean, in survey research, typically you do get a good representation just at random. But the nature of this survey, I'm a little concerned because this is as a Democratic majority board, I am a little concerned that maybe Republicans won't send it in as much because they'll see the survey and say, oh, the Democrats want to do this, so then maybe the response rate won't be as high among Republicans versus Democrats, and we might undercount Republican opinion. Or it could go the other way for whatever reason. It could go the other way.
So I understand where you're coming
from.
Yeah,
and it's whenever I've done surveys when I was in the political realm before, we always ask.
However, what you're assuming is that the information that you're getting is going to be a little bit skewed, and you're taking that one factor into account. Now, I'm just sitting here listening to this, and I'm thinking, well, the people who like to play golf at that golf course probably went to Florida for the winter. That population may be gone. It's just it's conjecture.
Okay.
Does that mean that you are going to weight the people who say they want a golf course more because that's not a representative population, or choose any other population? I mean, how do you make that determination and keep the data fair?
Well, I do understand the concern. And frankly, as it was come back, it might have shown up that actually the distribution is good, and we wouldn't have to wait by it. But without asking the question, I don't know if I had to. I could tell maybe from other like if the rest of the demographics looked all right, then we would have to take a leap of faith that it is. But
you don't think, I'm not thinking of.
No. Well, I understand.
Do you think that part of it is off-putting to people taking that survey?
It's one of the reasons it's last. is because it's sensitive. And when we would ask it by telephone, people would, when we did it by telephone, people would maybe be a little concerned sometimes when we ask it, but then they would answer it. It sounds like there is a concern that many people here in town might see the survey and see that question, and that because of that, they want to answer it. That's something that's essentially up to the board to consider. I personally do recommend that we keep it in, but I understand if the board would want to take that.
My concern is it's an observation that you made, at the beginning of this, that people might look upon this as coming out of a Democratic board. Now, I don't know who contributed to this, to the survey. I certainly didn't, and Joe certainly didn't. And I know it didn't come out of whole cloth. It came from somewhere, and I don't know where that came from.
If I'm not mistaken, you mentioned that you took input from the previous survey that was done, which the town did do.
I did, but it wasn't specifically on this topic. But as far as I looked at a previous survey that was done in 2004, and some of the questions that might have made sense or interesting to know that we could include in there, we did. And the questions that we did were current question 5 and 6.
What's your concern with that? I'll just be direct. What's your concern with that? I don't understand. I don't understand what you're saying along those lines. In other words, you're saying you didn't input specifically, Joe didn't input specifically.
You mean in the beginning?
What I'm saying is, if Rick said, well, this is coming out of a Democratic board, I'm just wondering what the basis for that judgment was.
Well, just because I know the first election's a Democrat, and then it's majority. It's a majority Democratic board. That's where it's coming from.
But it is a good question, because there was no way that Mr. Bordeaux had all these facts to even formulate.
He met with us. He met with me and Tony, and Sheila sat in on some of the chapters. Sheila found.
So if that's your question,
that's
but we got input from you initially last month.
Yeah, and
we
some of these questions actually reflect that
input again.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And if it takes longer to get the survey correct, we won't vote on it tonight. That's all. We're just going to keep going until people are comfortable with what we send out as a board.
My sense is that my experience has been over the past number of years, there's been a lot of partisanship has been not only on a local level, but on a national level has been a big issue. And it just seems, I'd like to see nothing better than to see that this just kind of reduce. And this just has a tendency to bring it up and bring it in the forefront. I can tell you when I saw it, it was one of the things I felt very much the same way as everybody who's expressed it. It just doesn't feel right. Okay. And so from that perspective, and I completely understand what you're getting at. And as a matter of fact, I commend you for your professionalism, because you're staying true to the integrity of the survey, which is the important thing. So, but I just think the current environment is such that, in my opinion, it may do more harm than good. Is where I come from.
Okay.
A clarification and a question. Is it going to every person or every household?
Every household.
Every household. But at the town meeting, everybody votes. So don't you think that's skewed?
I'm sorry.
If it has to go to a town meeting, everybody votes who's at the town meeting.
True.
It's not household. So isn't there a skewed issue there?
Well, they could copy it. I mean, I think what Joe's getting at, anybody could answer it, right? Even if
we have an opportunity to.
Right.
You can address that. We're
Right.
going to
Yeah.
send
The way
it
we
out.
have it said, it's going to be mailed to one per household. It's going to be sent on this. The stock that we're going to use is not something that people generally have in their household.
So Joe's right. So you can only get one
per household, and
household?
one person per. The way we plan to do is one person per household would
But if
fill
you
it
want
out.
to have someone else in your household, as I understood it, we had that discussion today. If
Yes.
you wanted to have another person, like my
correct.
husband wanted to do it, he could come to town hall, pick up another copy.
Yes.
It'll be not on the cardstock, so you'll know that it's separate.
I'm not. Yeah. It's so
Same
somebody.
household, but okay.
If somebody else in the household wants to fill it out, we'll allow that. Their responses, as far as for the tabulations are concerned, would not be part of it, because the sample frame is household. But the responses that they give and the places they give for open ends will be captured, and we'll still be able to look at that and see that input.
So the
data is on household
based
level.
on one per household.
Correct.
So to Joyce, following Joe, then what? I don't quite understand.
Why did we decide to do that?
I
What
could
did you
have
recommend?
a wholly
Why did you
different
recommend?
opinion two other people.
We
in
can
my house.
send them out to everyone if you guys choose. It's gonna cost a lot.
I don't know. I don't
More,
know. Sure.
but if you
Right.
think
So we
that's
could, if
the
we,
right way to do it, we'll do
to
it.
do a mail, we decided to do a mail survey, because frankly, it's very hard to control, if we don't have email addresses for everybody. So, and that would be another way to do it. But, and so, we don't know how many voters there are per household. So,
I understand.
so,
I don't know how you get that ballot.
well, it's still, many,
That's true, actually.
We have a voter registration, and we do know how many voters per household. But it's a lot more than one per household.
Right.
This is what, 3,000 households and 6,000 registered voters, so this would be double, right? Or at least, maybe more.
How do you pick the demographic information at the end if there's only one person?
well, the demographics that we get back if we used it as per household would be similar to, it would be similar, because, I mean, yes, you have families who are mixed marriages, and you have some Republicans and Democrats, but generally Republicans and Democrats tend to cohabitate together. So, it's I know, frankly, my household is not one of those. But
That's the other thing. Just like that, because I'm sorry. But
No, that's fine.
That's fine. And what you had said before, I thought that you mentioned that in other political surveys you had done, you do this. This is why is this a political survey? Why are we talking about politics in this survey?
well, it's the town. True. It's this is a town. This is a town. This is the town.
But I don't think that the concept of how you do the survey is different, whether it's political or otherwise.
Well, I think it is when you ask what party you're from, because it's making it political. And
It was. Believe me, it was strictly for statistical purposes only. No, I know. But if the board feels that it's going to be that much of a hot button issue, we take it out.
I think it is.
Well, I think you're wrong. I think you're getting involved in policy here, which is not your business.
Okay, Joe, go ahead.
But the other issue, this is a survey, this is not a referendum, it's not a fight,
Correct.
it's not binding. It's to give us an idea of what we already know, in a new survey, which is basically what people want. It's going to come back saying they want X, Y, Z, and the other thing.
It's to inform what you ultimately decide to do. It's not to decide what you're going to do.
Yeah, right. And I think once we get into the weeds here of this, we're going to find that the questions I think are limiting. The answers are limiting, and they don't take into account all of the considerations that have been discussed over the years for what to do with this property. So I think that needs to be looked at a little bit, which is why I said that I didn't have any input into this except what we had the last month when we went at it. So
okay.
My question is really,
yes.
Since 55 and over housing is very, very interesting to a lot of us, is there a question saying if you're planning to sell your house and if there was 55 and over housing in Woodbridge, would you buy it?
We have not asked that in the current draft. We have not asked that in the current draft.
I just wonder if we should consider asking that. Because we're all interested, in that issue because of the number of families that move from Woodbridge to Orange or other places or whatever, if it's appropriate.
Something I would consider. I'm turning 55 this year.
So if we build it, you can come.
Do you want to start going over the survey question by question, or I'm wondering if it would be appropriate?
I don't know how else we're going to do
this, so
because
I have a thought, because this is a meeting and we have a lot more things on the agenda. It's up to you guys if you want to continue to just do this tonight, or we have an opportunity on the 23rd to perhaps, prior to that meeting, we get together as a group, or like one special meeting, and everybody take this, drill it down, and continue to, and we just postpone a week or so. What do you guys think about that?
I'd like to propose if we do that, we put it on the agenda tonight. We agree to put it on the agenda tonight because this has been mentioned, not for tonight, but for that meeting that you just mentioned.
We'll have a special town meeting with an,
That's what she said.
with an
Just for
agenda.
this.
A special Board of Selectmen
Board of
meeting, sorry.
Selectmen meeting.
Just on the
Just
agenda
for
prior
this,
to
right.
our January 23rd.
Right, for the budget.
We're all going to meet a few minutes early anyway to do some other item that we had to do the contract. So we could
So
take how much time do you guys think we're going to need? And then, because I want to make sure everybody feels comfortable they gave their
No, we
input.
can't
I feel like
vote on
we're
Meet the 23rd.
beating a dead horse.
23rd and the 25th.
I mean, we really need a work session on these survey if you're
So
going
again,
to.
how much time do you think?
I'm not sure what time the other meetings are starting.
Okay,
Start
I
at
think
6.
it started at 6, so we could start at. You want to do 2 sessions? We have 2 meetings that week. We have the 23rd and the 25th. I want to do it right.
I don't know how long it's gonna take.
I think it's a great idea. Put it on as the agenda item for a meeting on
Why
the
don't we
25th. so
call
that
meeting 1 and
we
meeting
can-
2? Why don't we put 5 o'clock on the 23rd and 5 o'clock on the 25th? I hope those dates are correct. I can't get my phone to go on. Oh, they are? Okay. Oh, thank you. There's a big calendar on the wall. Thank you so much. Okay, for both of those. And, well, if we need the 25th, we'll keep it going. If we don't, we can do the 23rd and we'll make it a work session.
Okay, and
5 o'clock
a
on both
logistical
nights.
question. If we come to a conclusion at one of those meetings, will you still be on time to get this thing out by the end of January? I know it's short notice.
We're looking at it's getting tight.
But it's important that we do this correctly.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Okay. We're going to do it, we're going to do it.
Well, right now, the current timetable is we were planning on mailing the 22nd, so obviously we missed that. So we would miss that. We would need to be out in the same amount of time, so it would push back the, when we would get them back. Now we're pushing into the reporting, and I know that I'd have to go back and look to see whether or not we'd still meet the April 11th meeting, whether or not to report on results. I know.
Okay.
What is it safe to say 12 days after we give you the information is when we can have it mailed out? Today, we had given you the information today, you said the 22nd, so it's 12 days from now.
Yes.
So, okay.
Yes, that is correct.
And then everything just gets pushed as a result of that.
Right, but the analytical part gets a little squished if we still want to report back to the board in the April meeting.
Okay. Anything else on that? Then we'll just keep going. All right. Thank you.
So we need no motion, we need nothing to make that, to set up that special meeting.
No. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
again, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Wait a minute. Did we do 10? We did 10, right? Okay, we're up to number 11.
All right.
Tony, do I have any intro on you?
Nope. The first item I wanted to mention was that our annual financial report was passed out this evening, and Scott Bassett, our auditor from RSM, will be coming to, I think it's the 25th, at 6 o'clock to present the financial audit to you and answer any questions you may have. So if you can remember to bring it, that's great. If not, we'll have extra copies for you. So I wanted to mention that.
And big surprise, another award. I didn't want to, it's coming out in the newspaper, a photo and stuff, but once again, Tony got the award.
Our
Budget analysis, et
pardon?
cetera, yay.
25, I believe it's the 25th, yeah.
Same time as the survey meeting?
That starts at 6. So the survey will be at 5, he starts at 6, and then budget hearings are shortly thereafter. And our audits are due to OPM 6 months after the close of our fiscal year, so they're due December 31st. So that's the timetable with which we worked. So anyway, in front of you here is your monthly report for 6 months, or halfway through the fiscal year. And that's a budgetary surplus of just under $250,000. So our fund balance is just under 11%, which is I think a healthy position to be in, and especially considering these uncertain economic times with the state. I think it's healthier. It's a good idea to have a fund balance that's somewhat healthy, because you never know where we're going to be cut.
So along those lines, on the revenues, the interest income is generating a surplus of about $60,000 this year. So we're continuing to do well there. We're very limited in our investment options. But anyway, that's a surplus for us. The intergovernmental revenues, our current deficit is about $300,000. That was our cut for the year so far. And so we'll stay tuned for the next budget cycle. And, I think one way or another, we're going to get hit with that teacher's pension liability because it's just too big for the state to handle. And, I think that's our big exposure here. So our other revenues are doing well this year. We received $561,000 in surplus funds from the school district. So that's from the 2017 operations. And so I reserved $220,000 to offset next year's budget, which is what we had in this year's budget. So there's no shortfall there. And then the rest is unbudgeted revenue. That's $340,000. Of course, you can change that if you'd like. Your opportunity to do that would be in the budget cycle and to how much you reserve for next year's budget versus how much you take in this year. As Bob indicated earlier, on expenses, the Woodbridge Board of Education is reporting a deficit of 96,000. He said 99. I had 96 from the business manager, so that's roughly how much their deficit is now. So that's down. We have a surplus in workers' employee benefits of $50,000, largely due to savings in workers' compensation. And finally, as I mentioned in the last meeting, the district is planning to also the $500,000 I spoke of earlier was from last year's operation. There are also the surplus from last year's operations. This year, the Amity School District is planning to reduce its allocation by $178,000, and that's because essentially during their budget process, they budgeted to not receive excess cost grant funding, and because they were budgeted to not receive this grant funding, all the town contributions went up accordingly. And as it turns out, they are receiving the grant funding, so therefore they can reduce the town's allocations for the current year. So those are sort of the big items for the current year.
So ours is 178.
Right. That's not the whole thing, right?
I just want to understand the 247 surplus approximately.
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's after we consider not only the 400K that we use from the reserve, but also this 347.11 that we put in from Amity.
Correct. Yeah. So it actually explains it. If you go to the third page, the spreadsheet. If you look at the bottom, our net operations for the year are projected to generate a surplus of $247,000. However, in our budget process, we allocate $400,000 of our fund balance to offset our budget. So, cash-wise, it's actually a reduction in the fund balance.
Yeah, right.
Get that part.
But also, aren't we putting in 340?
That's in the 247.
Oh, that's in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's because the state grants are a reduction of $300,000. That's why there's doesn't look at it's not more than it appears. Yeah.
Any other questions for Tony on that? Moving on to funding requests.
There's also one to hand out this evening. Jerry, do you have that?
Want me to start or wait till she hands that out?
Or you can
Get going.
It's the third one, so you can do the other two.
First line item, transfer 1718-07 in your packet of $2,588.25 is a request to transfer grant funds from the Cable Advisory Council to the Government Access Television budget to be used for total audio solution in the Town Hall main meeting room. and there is a memo attached from PUA with further explanation. It's coming out of miscellaneous grants to CNR Government Access TV. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Anyone have any questions or discussions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That was memo. Okay, this is a good one. This is a line item transfer, correct? There was only one?
Correct.
Okay. Item 1718-08 in the amount of $10,000. This is requested to transfer a $10,000 donation from One Big Dog Animal Respite Fund to the construction budget for the Animal Control Renovation Project, coming from a donation to Animal Control Renovation of $10,000. I'll make that motion to approve it. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions on that?
Yeah, just nice. So the donation was made where?
To donate, One Big Dog made a donation to the town to use on the animal control renovation project.
So we're just putting it where it needs.
So we're just putting it where it needs to go.
Yeah.
And because funds are donated to the town, we still have to authorize the expenditure related to that donation.
Right. I got it.
That's what you're doing. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, stenosis here.
Who is One Big Dog?
One Big Dog is
The
a
5013C that was formed to help raise charitable donation toward the construction of the animal shelter. Construction renovation, I should say. Okay. Should I do my, we didn't.
We didn't.
Yep, we didn't. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much.
one more transfer.
Yep. Do you want to do that first before we
Yeah.
do the animal
Yes.
shelters? Please stay tuned and listen to the update on the shelter. It's really good news. Okay. I haven't seen it, so this is line item transfer 1718-09. Request is to fund the salary for hiring a communications director and grant writer for the remainder of the fiscal year in the amount of $29,500 coming out of
Extra, yeah.
workers' compensation
Right.
to administrative salaries. You want to explain, is there anything further on that? There's money in there?
There is. We had two things happen. The first is when we got our bid pricing on our insurance, we did much better than we thought we would on our pricing. And secondly, whenever we do workers' compensation, when we get pricing on it at the beginning of the fiscal year, we have to estimate what our salaries are, because workers' compensation is based on salary and based on wages, because it's related to injuries. And then at the end of the year, you get audited based on what your estimates were. So we had a few years, the insurance company's behind a few years. Long and short of it is we had some funds returned to us from previous premiums because of, our estimates were a little higher than what we had in budget.
Thank you.
That's a combination of why there's money left in that account.
So before discussion, I didn't make a motion on this one, right? I'll entertain a motion to transfer $29,500, line item transfer number 1718-09, from workers' compensation to administrative salaries. I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Wait a minute, this is
correct.
Yep.
You approved this.
Oh.
I mean, you can do it if you want, but I don't think that reconciles with your last vote, so I think.
It's okay. All righty. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. Thank you.
I just want to make one more comment before we go to the next item. This is a summary of the contingency account that was discussed earlier. So you can see that if you look at the summary here, we have a $200,000 contingency. It's actually a nice summary of all the transfers and line item transfers and contingency requests that we've done throughout the year. And you can see our contingency is $185,000 currently. So we're in pretty good shape.
Yep.
And I know the Board of Finance is strict about trying not to spend any money out of contingency until we get usually 3/4 of the way through the year. And because you never know when something can happen. For instance, the fire chief was talking about the fire and the damage to a lot of equipment.
Some
you know,
of it may be
some of
covered
it
by insurance,
may-
but we just
some
don't
may be
know.
covered, some may not be.
It was a pretty nasty
But
event.
at any point, something can happen where you're going to need, you know,
Well,
something.
yeah, we don't have anything that we know of now for contingency. Anyway.
nothing.
Right,
No.
so-
Yeah.
Just the little white things that come out of the sky,
Right.
you know?
Why, we over our
Actually,
budget on all that stuff?
Not yet, but it's not only that, but heating, gas and natural gas particularly.
Because it's been so cold.
Because it's been so cold.
Yeah.
And
Put a sweater.
in the
I'm just curious, what is the typical snowstorm cleanup process for a day?
it depends on the length of the snowstorm and the time of the snowstorm. If it's during the day and it's just product.
Yeah.
But a snowstorm on the weekend on a Saturday, could cost $15,000, $20,000.
Really?
Yeah. We had that one snowstorm that was, I think it was 45,000. That one in February a few years back where it snowed for like 3 days.
We had to hire outside experts to come in and plow the road so the plows could go through, like move the snow so the plows could move it.
Right.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
4 days
We don't have
in.
one of those.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Sure.
That was it. That's fun. Though.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for all that. We're up to the funding request. We're up to 11C, Animal Rescue Facility Update. This is a good one. As I reported to you in previous updates, ACO Ashley Sakalarikis, I did it, adopted Arlo, a wonderful dog with an inoperable heart condition. She happened to find Arlo in Brantford, and he was subsequently sworn in as an honorable member of the Hamden Canine Division of Hamden Animal Control at a ceremony in Hamden last fall. I only tell you about this because it led to something else more wonderful. At that event, it came to my attention that Hamden Animal Control had funding toward building a new animal shelter, but no approved space for construction. At present, Hamden rents kennel space from several towns. When they pick up dogs, they have to take them to Cheshire and to North Haven, to wherever there's a kennel available, a space available, making it quite difficult for the ACO officers. As you know, Woodbridge has land at our current shelter to renovate and add more room to accommodate more animals and other towns if we keep going. But initially, not yet enough funding to complete more than phase 1 of our animal shelter project. We're in the process of applying for a $250,000 grant to the Wiederhold Foundation. We've already received a steep grant from the state of $400,000. I called Hamden Police Chief Tom Widerer after that event, and Tony and I had an initial meeting with him and his Deputy Chief Cappiello. Yes, he's Frank's cousin. Animal control in Hamden is under the control of the police department. Following that meeting, Tom spoke with Mayor Kurt Lang and last Friday members of the Hamden City Council, Chief Widerer, Hamden Police Captain Ron Smith, who happens to be a Woodbridge resident, and Hamden's Director of Economic Development and Neighborhood Revitalization met with Tony and I, and we also toured the shelter. David Stein, architect from Silver Petroselli, our architect for our shelter project, also attended the meeting with the tour. Initial indicators are that Hamden is quite possibly interested. I think they're more than possibly. I think they're very interested in joining with Woodbridge to meet their space needs. And we anticipate good money coming in from them to help us perhaps do phase 1 and phase 2. But we have to wait for their proposal. It's now in their hands to give us that proposal. So I'm very excited about that. Once we receive a proposal from Hamden, I'll inform the board, and we'll have something hopefully very soon. So I'll now ask Tony to just give a brief update on the financials so far.
So
of the project.
Certainly.
Thank you.
We have a $400,000 steep grant, and we have now $10,000 in donations. And so we have roughly, and then we have $10,000 from a capital project to replace the roof, which we would use towards this project. So we have roughly $420,000 in funding currently. And we received the bids from the first for the first phase, and the price with the soft costs and all the rest of the cost put together is maybe $480 around there. So we have a shortfall of about $60,000 or so.
Mm-hmm.
So we're currently looking to address that shortfall, and one is with the Wiederhold grant.
We did write a letter to them. You have
Right.
to apparently, the way the Wiederhold works is you write a letter, and asking to be considered to apply. And we got a positive response saying, yes, you may apply. So
Right.
maybe that's a good indicator that we're
Typically,
gonna,
that's a good indicator that you
that
should
we're going to get
hopefully
it.
be something.
So that's due January 31st. Sheila's already started on that one.
And that's for the
Yay.
first phase, which is basically to rehab the existing structure and to put, including a new mechanical room for mechanicals and for water to the building.
It's the water line's there, Regional Water Authority connected,
Right.
but it's not in the building
Correct.
yet.
Right.
So that was a little bit of a shortfall, but
They brought it up the road.
They did. Well, we paid half of it,
they gave us a
and
discount.
they paid half.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
We went through it in one of our
Yeah.
meetings. Yeah.
But it's out there, it's in the street.
It's in the street. Yeah. Yeah.
Just waiting to go.
Have we applied for any other grants for this?
Not yet.
So we have
Purina, I think, has money. I think
Okay.
Petco has money,
Okay.
and I think the ASPCA has money.
Marina, Petco, and what else?
ASPCA
Okay.
and Purina has money
Okay.
too.
Cool. Okay.
It's not
Hoping-
it's not huge money, but it's still
hoping-
could be for some.
could be 10, could be 50, you know.
Yeah.
Right, and hoping we're also going to get.
So our
Hamden
goal is to
help
get the
us.
funding to start to complete phase one, and then phase two, which was the additional space, could hopefully involve the town of Hamden.
They're very excited.
If that works, it's again a situation where
Right.
we would see where the proposal is and if it's beneficial for the town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, refresh my memory, because it's not good, but I remember Mr. Stein was here, and he gave us a proposal that was at least two phases, phase one and phase two. Phase two got up over $1 million, I thought.
There were three.
I think there's three.
maybe.
It's a
Okay.
Yeah,
million.
the total is over $1 million.
No,
Correct.
over $1 million.
Yeah.
Did we approve anything? No.
No.
Okay.
We haven't approved anything.
All right,
Just
I
the use of
wanted
the
to be
grant.
sure, because we're talking about.
And the 10,000.
We're gonna do that.
Right.
Right.
But this board hasn't approved.
No.
Not yet.
Just wanted to be sure.
Not at all.
No. The idea is to come back to you
And
with a
I'm not
proposal.
bringing anything for your approval. I just want to tell you, you and I talked specifically about no
I'm
town
cool
funding,
with
and
that.
I'm
I
still
just
going to stick
couldn't
to that.
remember whether we had actually
Right,
said,
at this
we
point.
approved phase one.
We haven't
Not
put
yet.
out an RFP for that, have we?
We have. We got the bids
Yeah.
back for phase one. It was like
Yep.
389, 390,
Right.
somewhere around there.
That's where we're,
So
Thinking
we're
about.
hoping to at least bring that. You know, you'd have to approve the award of the bid, you know, the usual.
but we don't have
stuff.
enough to pay for it yet, so that's why I haven't brought it to you.
Right.
So hang in. Little by slowly, we're going to get this done. Okay. So that's the animal respite facility update. CERC contract. Tony.
The town of, sure, the
Thank
town
you.
for the past, so as far back as I can remember, I want to say early 90s maybe, has been involved in interlocal agreements with, for both recycling and for solid waste. Solid waste we did a little while back. I'm not sure if you remember. We did that
A couple of years
a couple of years ago, right? And this is for recycling. And essentially what it allows is then the committee of which we are a member, the interlocal committee will then contract to have our recycling disposed of and to a facility in Bridgeport. And so it's essentially a mechanism to help with disposal of recycling. And you know, we've been a member for many years, and we find that it's helpful to be included in a committee with so many of these larger towns that are in our area. So this is to renew this interlocal
Yeah.
agreement.
The committee membership is Bridgeport, East Haven, Easton, Fairfield, Milford,
Monroe, Orange, Stratford, Westport, and Woodbridge.
Right, so it's a good amount of
You
towns.
ready? Do you pay for this benefit?
No, we don't. And actually we don't pay for recycling because we pay for hauling, but the recycling pays for itself, the disposal. So this
So we
is
have to haul it somewhere anyway.
correct. Yeah.
Do we have any trash to energy facilities?
There's a trash and one in Bridgeport.
There is.
Yeah. It's the Resco facility is trash to energy. I'm not sure if they do it. I think they still, as of a few years ago, I'm not sure if how that works because they changed the arrangement. They were selling the energy, the electricity on the open market.
So
And this is Stratford. This is a facility in Stratford.
Oh, I need a motion correct for you guys, right? Okay, we have to change the agreement right in the first beginning, dated as of, we'll just make that change where it's dated blank 2017, which we'll have to change that date. And I think pretty much, Jerry, you
It's
reviewed
okay.
this,
I looked at it,
okay?
yes.
And then
Very
we'll
similar
just,
to our
so
other agreement.
I need a motion for the selectmen to sign the work contract as reviewed
And I
by,
believe most of the other towns have already signed.
Okay.
I think we're one of the last ones.
all right.
Yeah.
We're one of the last ones, okay?
For you to enter into this Greater Bridgeport Regional Recycling Interlocal Agreement.
Correct dates.
As of the correct dates.
Okay, as of tonight, as presented to the board.
As presented to the board
Packet.
tonight.
Okay.
Second it.
Is there any discussion on this at all? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Thanks so much. Okay, wait a minute. Budget guidelines, here we go.
I just wanted to give you sort of an update on where we are with the budget. We have gotten pretty much all of the department requests. We're compiling those requests. We're putting together our budget information. It's typically a big binder. Those of you who have been through this process before. And we hope to have those to the library by Tuesday so you can pick them up. If you prefer, we can get a digital copy instead or in addition to, so you can have it on a thumb drive if you prefer to go through the budget information that way. And then
send an email out.
she did, yeah. I just wanted to make sure you all got that. And then we have budget hearings on the 23rd, the 25th, and the 30th. And we've been meeting with each of the departments and pressing upon them that they have to learn how to do things differently and think differently. I can tell you that I'm hopeful that with this IT sharing, it's really a concept that can be used in many things. And there's typically a hesitancy with other agencies to do this sort of thing. It's just a natural resistance, and I think we have to overcome that and start to work together. Typically, you have to have two willing parties so that if there's a problem or some sort of a hiccup, you work together to resolve the problem instead of finger pointing and using, and so there has to be a willingness on each side. And I'm beginning to see that more and more here than I ever have. And probably partly because of the state pushing that down onto us. So we met with a lot of departments, as Beth indicated earlier. We have this animal control, capital sharing possibility. There's IT. There's the old firehouse, and there are many others that we're starting to develop. So I thought it'd be helpful to share that with you, and also see if you had. It's helpful as the Board of Selectmen and also with the Board of Finance, for you to express any guidelines or any things that you'd like to see. So it's not just me saying it, but it's coming from, the elected officials. So I thought if it's helpful, if you wanted to just discuss it,
Well,
I thought.
I've been through the budget process, and we go to the Board of Selectmen. We go to the meetings and we listen to the presentations and so forth. What I've noticed over the years, and I think while you're sharing this new conversation type, is, don't get me wrong, they do a great job. They bring their budget, but typically it's like, if I could keep it about the same, I do. If it's 2%, and then we vote on something that you present to us. Typically, you're doing the work behind the scenes. You present it to us,
right?
And we have typically approved that, and that approval is really a recommendation to the Board of Finance, who has the final say. So we don't, as a board, approve the actual budget. That's just the way our charter works. I guess you can argue whether that's right or wrong, but so where I'm going with this is through that experience, I think I'd like to see this board at least, because we don't approve the budget, maybe at least make an upfront policy statement as to what we'd like to see from the budget process, or do we want to say to the departments, hey, I'd like to see you come in with a 10% reduction, a 5 or a 3 or 2, whatever it is, and shoot for that. And if you did that, maybe everything's fine, or maybe you have to cut this or that, or what. So what it means if we say 10%, you have to come in with 10% reduction. What does that mean to your provision of services and so forth? And I'm just throwing out an idea, but I think it would be something we might want to do, since we don't approve the budget. Maybe right up front we could at least, as a board, set a policy that we'd like to see these departments come in with reductions rather than. So it's some direction from us to set the stage, and then allows Tony to try to work with them. So just a thought, just an idea.
May also facilitate, and along those lines, it may facilitate those departments who are naturally resistant to kind of combining with others. It may provide them some degree of incentive or reason that I got to think of this differently because I need to do a little bit more than I normally do.
In some cases, I've also mentioned that, or we have also mentioned that if you have to reduce your budget, it may impact, in most cases, impact services. And so what are those services, and what is that impact?
What's it going to mean for the residents?
We could always say, well, that's a nice 10% reduction. We love it, but that's an essential service.
Right,
so
right.
We wouldn't cut that.
Right.
Maybe they say, well, here's a 10%, but we can't do this. And we might say, well, we can live without it. That kind of thing. So to me, I just think that this board should, by virtue of that, at least we've set a direction down the line to say, hey, this is what we're looking for. And I think that in the times we've been through, and even now, I think reductions are in order if we can get there. Just a
What
thought.
happens
I don't know how
in
anyone
a
feels.
scenario where they can't come up? Like, I'm just thinking, because I was just at the Beecher meeting, the Woodbridge Board of Ed meeting, and they are originally he was getting close to 4% with all the things that they needed, and they the wants, and obviously you keep hearing about the enrollment increases. But he was able to trim a lot of it down to get it to 2.6, which was great. And you have all these teachers there, and they're worried about their jobs and how are they going to support these kids that they're busting at the seams at Beecher. So what would be? I love your idea of having a reduction and not having the same increases, like a guaranteed 2% increase every year. But like what do we do when they can't say cut any more than? Not that Beecher's there, but I'm saying, like, what do we do when one department maybe can cut a little more and they have a little fat to trim, but another one doesn't? Is there flexibility?
I think what my vision would be is they don't come in and say, I can't cut 10%. They say, I cut it 10%, and here's the impact of that. I have to cut a person, which means I can't do this, which means I can't do that. The fact that people say we can't cut is why we keep growing up. We keep going up and up. And needs and wants, you use the word, not me, wants. Wants are wants, right? So,
absolutely.
But if you don't tell them that we expect them to at least try to really dig into their budgets and get a reduction, I think we just keep getting, a pass.
So are you saying by January 23rd, we should, before they come on the 23rd
Well,
with
if
a
people
proposal?
like the idea, I'm really just throwing it out.
No, I'm just saying if by either the 23rd or the 25th, if those are their budget presentation, they say they should come prepared with two
Yeah, I mean, it might be a
sets.
little late.
I was going to say.
I know. I mean,
Might
we're
be a
kind of
little
getting
late.
the stuff here, but we could certainly.
But since we'll be meeting with each of them,
Yep.
is it a good time to let them know coming next year?
I was
You should expect this.
I was
to
going to
happen.
mention
This is
that
what you
this
should
is a
expect.
somewhat of a culture
Could
change.
be
You may have to do
for
this
next
over a
year.
period.
10% is frightening, trust me.
Yeah. But even, it could be 10% next year, but even though they've done their budget, we could also say, listen, I'd like you to go back, see if you can find 3% or 5%
And you
this year or
may look at the overall, when you get all the requests in and you see where the budget is, then you maybe can say, oh, it's here and we really need it to be here, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I think all I'm really saying is it gives this board, which doesn't really have a lot to do with the budgetary process, in essence, at least it gives us, we're setting a policy. I think that's appropriate to flow down to the folks and say, hey, here's what we expect.
So would you
Not
like
expect, but here's what we'd like to see, and do the best you can and bring it to us.
So would you like to propose a policy this evening, or would you like to think about it and bring it forward? You know.
No, I mean, I'm not here to,
No.
But if people like the idea, I would say we could certainly let people know that this is something that we're thinking about doing, and if we think it's too late for this year.
The best time to tell people that you're thinking of doing this is probably during the hearings when people come in front of you with their, you can explain.
Right. I have no problem with it. But would we be telling them that, we're not really expecting it this year, but this will be for, when do we start, in October for these budgetary?
Capital starts the end of September and the operating starts end of October,
right,
middle October.
So in fairness, maybe, especially if you're talking about a 10%.
Something that drastic, people need.
You need, you
time
can't
to
really do it
readjust.
now. And
Yeah.
I'm not looking to make crazy or be, hard-handed with it or anything. But so maybe it's more appropriate for next year. But
To Tony's point, I think it would be important if we're going to do that we're also in a position to indicate as to what our rationale is behind it. In other words, we should have this very specific, or we should have some sort of a goal that we're saying we'd like to see this done because it's our intent to do this, to lower, to do something.
Sure, I agree.
By such and such.
I'm just not doing it to be
right.
I'm trying to that fiscal health thing that's being done also.
Yeah, that may
help you.
The what? I'm sorry.
The fiscal
CERC.
health.
Fiscal health.
Oh, right.
With
Oh,
CERC.
yeah. Okay.
CERC
Yes.
fiscal
Okay.
health
Yeah.
study may help you
Right.
with your.
So I would say maybe it's something that I just thought about when I saw budget. I've been thinking about it for a while. I'm going to talk to you about it.
Yep.
So I brought it up, and
So when we talked
maybe
today,
it's
I
more-
said, tonight's your night.
Maybe it's just more appropriate for
Go for it.
That's ambiguous.
For
For discussion this year.
and to tell them that next year to be on the lookout for, and really it's just a policy change. I think that this board is going to set that as a policy. We may say, to follow up Mika, maybe this year, maybe we're not expecting much for various reasons, or this year we expect X for these various reasons.
I think most
But
of
it's
the
just
operating
something that's
budgets
never
have
been
submitted, right?
It's never been done
They're
where
in the
this,
book, but,
where
Sure.
where the top has said, hey, we need
That's
you
true.
guys to.
It has not.
So you're saying the policy would just give us the ability to set a goal
An
for the
expectation or a
budget,
goal
right?
for the budget process.
Whether
exactly.
it's 1% time, whatever it
0,
is,
1, 2,
depending on working with the
It's just
Tony and the Board of
the change.
Finance.
It's never been done before.
Right.
And so we're basically saying to Tony, who then goes and kind of executes behind the scene.
Right. It's helpful. It's helpful for long-term planning purposes for everyone to know where your direction you're heading in and what you're thinking.
Right.
So.
I attend the Board of Finance meeting next week, and I can certainly bring our discussion that we had tonight to them next week. I'll write it up and have Tony take a peek, see if it makes sense. Okay.
I'm interested in their input, but at the same time.
No, but I want to let them know but I want to let them know what we're doing.
Right.
That's it. I'm not going to ask them for their comments on it. I'm just going to give them the facts. They're not going to have input on that part of it because it's our policy.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so I will do that. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Okay, anything other?
No, it's just relating to that discussion. What some towns do is they do like a long-term planning exercise in this particular area, and I'm thinking that the study from that we were just talking about might help in that direction. Might help with that.
Yeah.
Long-term planning in terms of different aspects of town government and different programs and where you see them heading and which ones you think need more help and which ones you think maybe don't need, that sort of longer term guidance.
Plan is the key word. Nothing wrong with
Right.
No.
To that end, Tony, would that entail maybe having some sections once in a while just for us to learn a little bit more about?
Typically, there's a planning committee, and the planning committee puts together a report, and then the report is a guideline for people to follow in the process. And usually it involves, like I do occasionally, like a 2 or 3 year projection where I can project where everything with taxes and such will be in 3 years and or 5 years, whatever. Part of that process. Yeah.
Didn't we have a planning meeting?
Pretty well.
Joe, didn't we have a planning meeting mid-year last year, or
We had one.
what? There was something.
One budget. Yes,
Wasn't-
Ellen said one. We had one meeting.
Yeah.
As I recall.
We did one.
I remember I was there.
A few members of this board and a few of the finance
Right.
for a long-term capital.
It was capital.
Yeah.
But we had one meeting.
Right, and then it kind of,
That
so
was
maybe
it,
we
yeah.
could, on
But
those
yes,
lines,
same
start it
type
up. That
theory.
was, I remember
So
that.
we did kind of talk
I didn't
about
dream
that.
it. Okay.
Never executed.
Okay.
Followed through.
So that we have some experience with doing it. We just need to start it up again and maybe continue it related to
It's a
this.
little more formal.
Yeah, more
Yeah.
formal and,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other?
No, that's it.
Okay, no other others. Okay, great. Assistant Administrative Officer's Report, Betsy.
I'm on pictures.
So I'd like to give you all an update on the microgrid. I understand the last you heard was to save the date for a ribbon cutting ceremony in December, but now we're in January. And so obviously there's been a few hiccups. Once the UI began testing the microgrid, there were a few issues that were discovered and they've been resolved. We're waiting to solve one last issue. That's something, I think it's a switch for the generator.
One of
Is
the
that
phases of our
accurate?
generator to center buildings failed.
And so it's a good thing we're doing these testing because we've discovered issues that were at different parts with the fuel cell. There was an issue over at Amity that's been resolved. And so we've discovered this issue with our generator, which needed to be solved anyways. So once that's resolved, we can schedule the final test and we'll have our microgrid. The state gave us an extension and they gave us the extension through the end of August. We will not need to go through the end of August. We are anticipating that this will be done next month. Fingers crossed.
Okay.
Any questions for Betsy? Okay. Thank you. Item 13, Special Project Manager Sheila McCrevin.
I just have a brief update for you. As Beth mentioned, I did attend last night the Sustainable CT launch event that took place in New Haven at the School of Forestry and Environmental Science at Yale. There were about 50 people in attendance there, and I counted 5 people from Woodbridge that I recognized, including our Sustainability Chairman, John Gorham, and another one of the members, Carissa Vega, several other members. We also met 2 members from the Bethany team, and to just go along with something that Tony was saying about encouraging collaboration, this program encourages collaborations between municipalities, and the Bethany folks were very interested in collaborating with Woodbridge, so maybe we can grow something out of that that's going to hopefully share some services and save money. They went over the program and how it operates, and it starts with a resolution that's passed by a board of selectmen. People in the room were popping their hands up to say, we passed ours a week ago, we passed ours last night. Bethany is one that passed them last night. So I would anticipate that the Sustainability Committee here in town, our ad hoc, is going to be meeting on January 22nd, and they will likely want to come to the February meeting to talk about possibly passing the resolution here. There's sample language that was distributed. The really nice thing about this, again, is that once if Woodbridge does participate and starts with a resolution, you already have the team that's designated with the sustainability team. But once you get started with this program, it unlocks a set of resources on the website, including grant opportunities. So it's a really big highlight for this. People in the room were very excited, and I know it's going to come back to the Sustainability Committee as well. So you'll get to experience it when they come to you.
So what does the resolution entail?
It's simply saying, this is the sample language, so it's a templated language, whereas Sustainable Connecticut is a comprehensive statewide action-oriented voluntary program meant to boost local economies. It goes on whereas, and then resolved that the town will participate And it's voluntary what actions you take. They actually had a little brainstorming session. This is about an hour and a half long meeting, but they had a brainstorming session where they asked you to look at the possible ways that you get certified in this program. The more certification you get, the more grant opportunities you might have. So it's all voluntary. So it's a resolution that says you will voluntarily pursue actions for certification and the opportunity to get into some competitive grants.
Thank you. Oh, goodness. Town council's report.
Okay, so I just have you all have the communications systems agreement that was in your packet, and I just want to make a couple comments. This had to be signed. I was given this 4 days before a deadline. It had to be signed in 2017, or else the town would lose its 10% discount. And when I heard about that, I said, oh, they're going to give us an extension. Bottom line is they wouldn't give us an extension. So Beth was actually sick at home, and we had Sheila deliver the agreement to her
And I used
while
my
she
own
was,
pen because I didn't
to
want her
make
to
sure
get
she
my
got it signed. We
stomach
spent
full.
4 days negotiating it. Many changes to the original agreement were made. They took a lot of the suggestions we made, some not. But I just want to point out the important section, and this is important for Joe's committee. Paragraph 13.3 on page 10, it's termination for convenience. I was concerned about rushing into signing this because Joe's committee had not had not reviewed the specifications of what is going to go into this system, and those are contained in the document, about a 60-page document that's entitled the proposal. It's in their proposal, and it is the technical part of the agreement, which was approved by our consultant, Paul Zito. So I was afraid we would sign this, we'd be stuck no matter what Joe and his committee would decide. You're looking into some other possible arrangement with for dispatch. So we insisted that we said we wouldn't sign this, we can't go forward until we got something that gave us an out in case we made changes to what the existing specifications were, or subject to our review by our committee. Paragraph 13.3 says the customer shall have the unconditional right to terminate for any reason or no reason this agreement in whole or in part for the convenience of the customer upon 10 days prior written notice. So from a lawyer, this is dream language. We can always get out of this agreement. We can always say we need to make some changes. The specifications are not right, or we may have some alternate plans. We were able to take the advantage of the 10% discount, even with that clause in it. So I think we all should feel pretty comfortable. The Motorola in the end was very reasonable.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So for purposes,
You're going to talk about legal stuff?
No, not really.
All right.
Well,
mind you,
I was.
You know where your boundaries
I
are,
was
right?
actually.
Okay.
Since you don't want me to.
No, you can.
Well, I did have a couple of legal. I mean, I don't know if I have the agreement here that it is signed by both parties.
Yeah, Beth signed it, yes. We had to have it done before the end of the year.
But 6.2, the contract price is blank.
That's right, because that goes to the proposal. That's what you're going to, and we don't know what the contract price is until your committee, together with our consultant and Motorola, define what we need
Okay,
exactly.
that's great, and for my purposes, that's great. If I'm just wondering.
Is it not, well, you're saying.
You know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, it doesn't have all the essential terms, and if it doesn't have the.
But if everyone thinks it is, but you don't have an essential term. But let's leave that alone.
We know that, and we did it, I did it intentionally
But
because.
that's okay if
Right.
it's open-ended, I'm fine with that,
Yes.
as long as they agree.
Right.
The other thing is, we're gonna need the exhibit C1, that's the statement of work, the system description, all those exhibits.
schedules
I'm sure
have to
they're
go.
voluminous, but we need to see those for our.
That's what your committee, that's in the proposal.
Okay, so I need to get that.
Yep.
if we have that.
So this, tomorrow we'll set.
Okay, no problem. I mean, I can come and get it. I don't know how big it is.
It's 100 and something pages.
I can come get it.
A lot of
Just call
letters
me,
and
tell
numbers.
me it's available. I'll
Yeah,
get
okay.
it. But we'll need to see that. It's got
Okay.
the equipment list and the statement of work and all that.
There are a lot of open questions, and most of them are answered in that proposal, some are not, but it's intended that the contract is signed, and then you have the review period, which
Yeah,
you're going to be
that's
doing.
good.
Yeah,
That would-
right.
Okay, any other questions for Jerry or Joe or anything else from anyone? Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the communication system agreement as
You already
presented.
did it. You already did it.
You
You
already
signed it.
So
It's done.
so what do we have to do?
Nothing.
then?
Make a motion.
You don't
already
have to-
signed it.
We did
We-
this
I don't
in
need board approval to go forward with it as signed? or-
No.
Oh,
no.
okay.
Board can't say no, we're bound.
We're bound,
Whoa.
but did we approve
You
or
approved
sign
it,
it
yes.
before? I thought
Yes,
we
you
did.
definitely
Okay,
approved it.
all right, well, never mind.
You approved it
Okay.
subject to the negotiations.
I'm not a lawyer, can you tell? Okay, thank you so much. Jerry, do you have anything other?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 15, the town clerk's report. I'll make a motion that we approve the monthly December 1st through December 31st distribution report of the town clerk, the state of $26,901.50, and the town $11,648. Your second?
Second.
All in favor? Discussion? Aye, thank you. And I'll also make a motion that we approve the fiscal year to date from July 1st, 2017 through December 31st distribution report as in your packet. The state, $222,398.25, and the town, $93,404.75. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Waning hours here. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item 16, the minutes of December 13th of our regular meeting of 2017. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Is there a second? Anyone have any corrections, additions, changes?
You?
I read them. I'm good. Yep, I'm all good, yep. And the person, I still have that person?
The person.
Oh, great.
The change person.
Yep, the change person. Okay. All in favor? Thank you so much. One more thing on item, I just would like to add something under, it came to my attention this afternoon that our next meeting is February 14th, which is Valentine's Day. I don't have a problem with it, but apparently some of the other board members do. And so we were going to propose that maybe we meet on that date, but we meet earlier so everyone can get out and do whatever they have to do with their significant others later in the evening. So I would propose perhaps meeting on that date starting at 4 o'clock. That just came up, so as a proposal. What do you guys think? Wednesday the 14th.
I'm just wondering if we changed that because we knew it when we said that, when we said it.
I have it on mine.
Well,
it would be in on your December 13th.
I don't know why I went to
What do you got? Wednesday, February 14th. Yep.
That's what you.
I have it on my calendar. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Is that a maybe win-win, or should we change the date? Or do you want to try to have everybody be mad and we meet on the 14th and we have to explain to our spouses? I won't have to because he doesn't care.
What is it, 4 o'clock now?
Who has a spouse that cares?
Apparently several.
Not me.
The young
Not
folks.
me.
I don't know. Not naming any names. Okay.
Well,
What
when
do
you
you,
say young folk, there's not too many.
So it's 4 o'clock.
what do you guys think? Do you want to try for 4 o'clock on that date?
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, Joe? You can do it? Terry?
I'm in town. I will.
Right,
find
you might have a conflict. How about you, Mika? Oh, Joe, you can do it? Good, Mika. There was an issue about Yukon or something? No.
No, I'm good.
You're good. Okay, so the only one is possible Terry. She might not be here.
possibly.
And how about the rest of, you can do it, Tony,
I'm
4
good, yep.
o'clock? Betsy? Jerry? Works for me. Okay. Jerry, you good?
I'm good.
Tina won't be mad. Okay, she'll
Not-
be happy.
not at all.
Okay, so we'll change it to 4 o'clock on that date. All right, and it'll, I guess, then become a special meeting, right? Even though same date but different time. Okay. So thank you for that point of privilege.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
If it's a special meeting, can you still have public comment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, I hope so. I like public
Are we planning to
comment.
have
I love
that
having
on those days? Maybe the second one, but the first one, is that,
Have public comment on,
are we gonna have public comment on,
The
are we
23rd
talking
and
about
the
23rd and
25th?
25th?
No, we're
No,
talking
no,
about
no.
the 14th.
14th.
Okay.
And you
Yeah.
have to decide to have a
14th is a special meeting, you make the decision to have public.
I think we should. You all agree? Because it's kind of a regular
regular
meeting, just a
meeting,
little
really.
bit
We just
earlier,
changed
so
the times.
I'd rather do it
So
that
we're
way.
moving it up to
And what we could
or
do,
4 o'clock.
we'll,
No, we're moving the
no,
meeting
no,
up to 4 o'clock.
Here's
We're
my
going
thought on
public
that. We'll do public comment at 6, because if they know to come at 6, what do you think about that at the end of the meeting? Okay. Okay. Thank
Are we
you.
doing public comment at the 23rd?
No.
No, okay. It's gonna-
Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Somebody? Is there a second?
January 23rd, January
Second.
25th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Adjourned at